like to call this meeting to order. Sorry I'm a little bit late. Actually, traffic wasn't bad. I'm glad we didn't pass that 1 cent. That's a joke. That's a joke. That was complete.
You may want to keep that
joking.
to yourself, Mark.
Yes, I didn't finish my sentence. I'd like to, again, welcome you to the Finance Administration and Economic Development Committee. Today is Monday, November 25th, 2024. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. If I could ask someone to approve our agenda today.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Tabernick. Is there a second, please?
A second.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Glover. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we will approve this without objection. Seeing no objection, our agenda has been approved. I will now ask for someone to approve our minutes from October 28th, 2024.
I'll approve those.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Is there a second, please?
I'll second, Mr.
All right.
Chairman.
Any other discussion regarding those minutes? Seeing no discussion, we will approve those without objection. And seeing no objection, those have been approved. We will now move on to our citizens' comment period. Is there one person? We do have one person who would like to speak today.
Oh, yay.
And again, we ask that they limit their comments and speak no longer than 3 minutes. They address council in a respectful manner appropriate to the decorum of the meeting, refraining from use of profane, abusive, or obscene language in accordance with the Beaufort County rules and procedures. Giving of a speaker's time is not allowed to another.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the committee for allowing me to speak today. My name is Mark Feinberg, and I currently serve as chairman of the Stormwater Utility Management Board. I have held that position for the past 4 years and have been a member of that body since December 2014. I am asking you today to reappoint Mr. Patrick Mitchell to the Stormwater Utility Board for another term. Patrick has an exemplary attendance record and contributes greatly to the issues that arise on Ladies Island and stormwater issues in general. It is my understanding that Councilman Bartholomew has proposed a new resident of Beaufort County for a seat on this board. I applaud Mr. Presnell for applying, but his background as an electrical engineer will not add any needed expertise in the stormwater reviews. I would like to go on record as the newest member of the Solid Waste and Recycling Board, and it is obvious that Ladies Island needs a representative for that board. Please remember that Solid Waste Board did not meet for over a year because of the lack of members. It is my opinion that the county would be better served if Patrick Mitchell was reappointed to the Stormwater Utility Board and Mr. Presnell was appointed to the open seat representing Ladies Island on the Solid Waste and Recycling Board. Thank you for your time. Any questions of me?
Oh, we can't ask questions.
No, thank you for coming. Appreciate you being here. All right. Any other citizens' comments? All right. Let's move on then. And this would be for our Assistant County Administrator report. Mr. John Robinson, thank you for coming.
Good afternoon. We have several things to cover during the ACA report, but first, it is my pleasure to introduce to you your new county CFO, Pinky Harriet. She's coming. We are fortunate that this is the last Finance Committee meeting of the year and her first day of work. She had orientation this morning, got to visit her new office for about 15 minutes, logged into her computer and her phone with 1,000 messages, and visited my office for a little while, and now here she is to see you. Quickly about Pinky, she will also be introduced at the December's council meeting for a full council. Pinky, where is she?
She's over there.
See, I did. She's hiding because she doesn't want to. Pinky is a certified government finance officer, GFOA certification. She recently was the Vice Chancellor of Finance and Human Resources for USCB. Prior to that, she worked for Beaufort County as our budget manager. One of those years that she was a budget manager for Beaufort County, we achieved a prestigious award for her work. Among her other expertise and talents, she is also proven to be a great leader. So we are fortunate to have someone with her technical expertise in finance, as well as someone who has proven to be a good leader to help our finance team improve and grow. Pinky, do you want to say hello? Did she leave again?
Right. Chairman, how are you? Good to see you again, council. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm glad to be a part of the team here and look forward to putting next year's budget together.
Thanks so much. Welcome, Ms. Harriet. We're glad you're here, so thank you.
So in the next few weeks, we'll continue to transition, and by the next Finance Committee, she will be up to speed, and you won't have to hear from me again. It'll be awesome. I will continue to serve the county as the public safety director, and not as involved in finance as I have been. All right, if we could put up the presentation we have, please.
The assessor's office?
No, the PowerPoint for finance. That's the one. Excellent. All right. So I'm going to start with a few minutes. I'm going to talk about Bluffton MCIP. Then we'll follow on, and I'll do a quick procurement services update. Dave Thomas was out today, so I'll do that for him. Followed by that, Valerie's going to talk about our transfers. And then finally, we'll end the ACA report with Christine, who was going to talk about our county funds like we have done a few times in the past. So the Bluffton MCIP. This is a multi-county industrial park. The multi-county industrial park began conversations. The first ordinance for the park was in 2008. It was updated again by ordinance in 2013, and then again in 2018. And there's a few, not only ordinances, but MOUs that are included in that process. Earlier this year, in June, the county received a letter from Bluffton, the town of Bluffton's attorney, claiming that there was some discrepancies in the payments of the MCIP that Bluffton should receive. So the county received that letter. We worked with our attorney then, Tom Kevney, who had knowledge of that MCIP. As you can see, well, as you just heard, this is from 2008 with several revisions in between. So this was hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents to go through and understand how each one of those changes affected the calculation of the MCIP. So that took us about 6 weeks to get through that process. So we did our own analysis of the MCIP and the analysis we received from Bluffton's attorney. There was still some differences in the two interpretations. So at that point, I reached out to the town of Bluffton, reached out to Chris Forrester. Chris Forrester and his team, along with myself and Christine, met. We went through all of these documents together, and we came to an agreement of how to properly interpret each one of the documents as we went forward, which was really critical to get done. The interpretation of those documents is the foundation for how the funding is calculated. So they went back and did their calculations. We went back and did our calculations, and we resolved that the MCIP does owe the Bluffton Township just over $400,000, about $405,000. So I wanted to make sure that you, the Finance Committee, were aware of that. now that we have settled on a number, how we resolve that is next. In one of the 2018 ordinance, it specified that an overage, the county would be responsible for any deficit, that we would pay for that deficit either through our ad valorem taxes, through our budget, or through accommodations tax. After I've spoken with our attorney, we don't believe that that is a justifiable use of accommodations tax. Although it was written in the ordinance, it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. So we'll continue to work on this process and come back to committee to let you know that where we are in the process and how we intend to resolve this. But we've recently finished the analysis process that we've gone through. We understand the problem. We understand the solution, where we need to be, and now we have to implement some solutions to get there. I did have a conversation, an email conversation with Chris Forster from Bluffton on Friday, and let him know that I was going to make this presentation to you and discuss this collaborative effort that we've had over the past, nearly 6 months at this point to get to this position. This was not an easy task at all. The complexity of the MCIP took us quite a while to make sure that we were both comfortable on each side, and that this was a fair representation of the original intent.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
I was really lost in everything you just said. So, can you do an executive summary of what you just said?
I certainly can.
I appreciate
I've
that.
got quite a bit of information in writing.
I don't need the details.
Yes, sir.
Executive summary.
We can get you a couple-page document that outlines that.
That's plenty
So
enough.
as part of this process, and I can tell you what took us quite so long to get here, is throughout the process of this interpretation, there was very little written down. So we had to go back through and interpret the way calculations were done versus the MCIP. So what we committed to doing was, once we settled this, to put it all in writing, so all the details are there.
That's good.
So people who follow us can understand how we got here. There's only a few years left of the MCIP, but there's no reason not to do it right. So that is their intent.
John, tell us
We
what the
can certainly-
MCIP,
It is a multi-county industrial park. So this one is referred to as the Bluffton Multi-County Industrial Park. There's a piece of property involved in that is behind our Myrtle Park building, as well as the Culinary Arts Center, which was added to it in 2018, and some
I
others.
remember that one.
Yes, sir. And that was part of that original agreement.
Oh, they connected.
It is part of the multi-county industrial park, part of that funding.
I didn't know
went
that.
there.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So we will get that for you.
So our next move on that is we're going to wait for you to come back with more information? Is that kind of what you're
Yes, sir.
saying to us? Okay.
Yes, sir. We will explore opportunities to make up that difference in the MCIP as June comes around, that revenue comes in from that MCIP. So we need to make sure that this year's revenue will cover the current expenses, so that we don't have a greater deficit. As most MCIPs, the multi-county industrial park, they reach the end of their lifetime. So this one would expire in 2028. Then the revenue versus the expenses tends to get very, very close, because it's not, they're not building more things in there. It's not generating additional revenue. So it will get tighter and tighter as we continue forward. But that'll be the next thing we do, is analyze what the next 4 years looks like, what we think, whether the expenses will cover itself, or there'll be additional deficit that we need to be prepared for.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is the school district also involved in this?
Yes, sir.
MCIP?
So part of that, the school district, I believe it's $125,000 that the school district gets from that MCIP, because the tax burden, the taxes they would receive from that are deferred. So we do, part of that agreement is to support the school district. Yes, sir. All right. let's talk about procurement services. So again, Dave Thomas is out for the holidays, but I will cover his report. So what has happened in the last few months of procurement services has been working hard to consolidate some of our purchasing programs and our subscriptions. So one of the things that we've gotten done recently, this was implemented in the last 2 weeks, training was done for staff on Friday, is we closed, well, not necessarily closed, but consolidated all of Beaufort County's Amazon accounts into one corporate account. What this does now is funnels all of those purchases through the finance office, through the procurement office, so one department can see every Amazon purchase throughout the county and vet those purchases to make sure they comply with our new code. So this is a great thing for us. Right now, we're only making those purchases through PO, so through a purchase order. And once we get through that process and everyone knows how it works properly, then we'll open those back up to P-card purchases. But we're going to baby step through this process. Yes, ma'am.
What about elected officials do they have their own Amazon accounts?
So we offered the same corporate Amazon account to all of our electeds, and to my knowledge, they have all agreed to use that account.
Thank you.
So this is only the first step in this type of consolidation. We're also working with several other companies. Uline is an online source that we can get anything from pump parts, mechanics parts, tools, appliances, small equipment, and uniforms. So Uline is another company that they're working with for small purchases and some others. And there's actually a large list that Victoria with the finance office has taken that task on. Sharon, you were introduced to not long ago. Sharon was hired as an additional, a new employee in the procurement office to manage our competitive solicitations. So that's taken some load off of Victoria and allowed her the freedom to work on these projects. So this is a really good step forward for Beaufort County. They're continue to work on our P-card policy, procurement policy, and the travel policy. So all of these have now been developed within staff, and it's time for the executive and legal staff review. Then we'll go back and make those changes and hopefully come back forward to committee to present those documents. The procurement policy itself, which is in line with our new procurement code, is about 60 pages. So it is pretty intensive. And this is what we talked about when we presented the procurement code, that the policy would have much greater detail than the code does. So we can get right down to the fine discussion of how things work, where the code covers why they work.
So, Mr. Robinson,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
travel policy right now is the current one we've had. It is not revised.
Yes, ma'am. It is the current policy is what we use.
Okay.
And I think it's like 4 or 5 pages. It'll be a little bit longer this time.
I'm sure it will. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
A little bit longer. Procurement update. So the actions that we have right now, in the backup material, I gave you the full list. It's a long spreadsheet of the competitive and non-competitive solicitations. But right now, we have 33 active solicitations. There are 3 in draft, 7 advertised, 8 under evaluation, 8 awarded, 4 canceled, 2 on hold, and 1 that we received no bids. And you have that full list in the backup material.
So I'm just curious why we have no bids on the Goth Road?
Goethe Road?
Yeah, what's wrong with it that nobody wants to bid on it?
The 2 companies that would normally bid, they don't have time to do it. They're too busy. So we'll have to resolicit when they have opportunity to perform. That's the information that I got from our procurement office on that one in particular.
And I'm very happy to see the 4th one from the bottom, the design build for the Bluffton Station 39, obviously.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's in evaluation.
It
so
is.
That's great.
So we're waiting for bids to come in for that. And the reason, while there was already a design for the structure, it needs to be redesigned so that it fits
It
the
fits
lot.
the land.
And complies with the Beaufort Jasper water line and sewer line that traverse the front of the property, so.
Is county paying for that, or is the BJWSA moving
I don't know
the
yet.
pipe gratis?
I don't know yet. Once the design work is done and we know what has to be done, then we'll negotiate that.
I was just throwing that out for Charlie.
Yeah. Charlie said he's got it covered.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, Charlie.
No, he's got to go. No.
Hold on, get
yes.
Mr. Glover.
Yeah, just quickly, for Mr. Dawson, I see where the demolition for Agnes E. Major has been canceled.
Yes, sir. So that, it was canceled, but it's still going to happen. So we opened it for solicitation, and we canceled it because county staff is going to do that demolition. So we had all the hazardous material removed from it. It's an inert building, and we're going to tear it down.
Got you.
Oh,
Okay.
Hank said it's already gone.
It's already gone?
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Well, next up is Valerie. Let me get out of the way.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me back again. I'm here to tell you about the budget transfers that have occurred since our last meeting. There were 4. We had the detention center request funds from non-capital equipment to go to maintenance contracts for $11,701 to pay for an invoice for software purchase for Motorola Solutions. The clerk's office requested $18,410 from professional services to dues and subscriptions for some software as well. And Stormwater requested $224,403 from vehicle purchases to capital equipment for a CAT 926 wheel loader from Blanchard that didn't arrive in FY24, so we had to move the money or find the money in FY25. And then the sheriff's office moved $15,000 from non-capital equipment to dues and subscriptions. To pay for dues and subscriptions, I requested more information about that and did not receive it. And so that is where we are.
Is that a very low number of budget transfers?
For this time of year, yes. Come December, it's gonna pick up for sure, so. I do have some people that have made some requests since this report was prepared just on Thursday and Friday, just to kind of shore up some of their accounts, so, yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Ms. Altoff? Valerie, thank you for
All right,
coming. Appreciate you being here
thanks.
today.
Hello. Good
Afternoon.
afternoon. Okay, so these financials are for the general fund, the capital improvements fund, and the enterprise funds. And we are in the 5th period, and these are as of November 20th. For the general fund, we have an ending fund balance of $41 million and an actual net loss of $34.9. And this is expected because we haven't recorded the property taxes yet for December and January. So the revenues will catch up. And below is a summary of what's in your packet and your data. The actual to budget percentage for revenues is 12%, for expenditures is 34%, and total spent and encumbered is 38%. And below, we have a net loss with encumbrances of about $40.9 million. So I wanted to show you both with the encumbrances and the actual net loss. Okay, for the capital improvements fund, we have fund balance of 16.4 and a net loss of $2 million. And the actual is the budget percentage. Here is 400, well, it's 18%, but I had to transfer in the 18.494 because we closed Fund 1040 into Fund 4000, so I had to show it that way. So that's why I showed it as a beginning fund balance instead. So the actual budget percentage for revenues is less than 1% with the 511,000. And the expenditures are 3%, and the spent and encumbered is 8%, and the net loss of 8 million with the expenditures and encumbrances. For our solid waste fund, we have a deficit of 852,000 and a net loss of 4 million, which the property taxes will help in December and January also for the revenues. And the revenue percentage is 2%, expenditures is 35%, total spent and encumbered is 74%, with a net loss of 9 million. And for our stormwater fund, we have 17.3 fund balance and 2 million net loss, with a revenues percentage of 3%, total expenditures 23%, and total spent and encumbered of 33%, and a net loss of 3.3 million. Okay. For Beaufort Executive Airport, we have ending fund balance of 3.2 and a net loss of 49,000. And the revenues percentage is 13%, expenditures 15%, total spent and encumbered is 36%, with the net loss with encumbrances of 606,000. For Hilton Head Airport Fund, we have 29 million for ending fund balance and a net gain of 380,000. And the revenues percentage is 37%, expenditures 29%, and total spent and encumbered 45%, with a net loss of 440,000. Oh, and any questions? And maybe if you want to see different funds next time, just let me know. I just gave you the same ones.
Any questions?
I see you put on the next page, just like a zillion line items. That was just to keep us up all night, or?
Uh-oh.
You have every line item here.
Oh,
After
in
that.
your data?
Yeah,
Yes, I just gave you every
I know.
line item so you can see the activity for each fund.
So I was a little curious on page 27, if you call it up. We have all kinds of miscellaneous fees.
Miscellaneous revenue?
Yeah.
Is it revenue? Yes, ma'am. It's just basically everything that's not categorized in any other.
So we don't know what those are. I
Well,
mean, I
yeah,
get what
so there are
miscellaneous
some
is.
for, like insurance proceeds or just other types of revenue that doesn't fit the ad valorem,
Some are kind of substantial.
yeah. So which line item do you want?
Well, miscellaneous revenues, $250,000, $400,000. Illegal, that's kind of a lot of money.
Oh, those are the legal fees,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am. The reimbursements
Revenue,
for.
yeah. Some big amounts here.
Insurance or for the legal insurance that they receive. Yeah.
It's a lot of information.
Before they were showing it in expenditures, but we are properly recording it as revenue. So that's why it's a miscellaneous revenue.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I just noticed we have like a zillion dues and subscriptions.
Oh, yes.
It's on page 39. More, it's not, I'm exaggerating a
Dues and
zillion, but it's more than I
subscriptions.
can believe.
Oh, yes.
It's listed by department.
I know it is, but still, it's a
It's a
lot. Do
lot.
we know if any of those are redundant?
I'm sure there probably are, but procurement is working on that.
Okay,
But
because,
it's there by department and by, project funds as well.
because one of the things that we were told was like newspaper subscriptions. Different departments all had, and why are we doing that, and so on.
Or maybe some certification dues, that might be in there.
Okay, there's a lot of them.
Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead.
maybe at the next finance meeting, we could kind of get a report back about the subscriptions, because that was one of
Okay.
the findings.
It was.
Yeah, was how many subscriptions. If that's enough time. I
Okay.
know it's a lot to go through.
Subscriptions, okay.
If
I do.
not, another finance meeting, another day.
Yeah.
It'd be good to hear a summary of that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, yes, sir.
everybody does things differently when they report. What would be helpful for me, and I know that revenue is still coming in, and revenue is, because the taxes notice is going out, so revenue is coming in, blah, blah. You use the terminology net loss, net gain. In the government, I don't necessarily see it as net loss, net gain, but that's all right. I don't have a problem with that. What will be very helpful, Mr. Chairman, is that, we budget X amount of dollars, and at one time in our reporting, in your reporting, or someone reporting, with the expenditure in certain category, that was like 49% of what was budgeted, or that was 50% of what was budgeted. Sort
Okay.
of give you an idea
So
of
you
where
want in
things
categories?
are.
Okay, so more in categories like personnel or,
What you have here is fine. It's just
Okay.
that I know that revenue, budgeted revenue in general fund is X amount of dollars, and we only received X amount of dollars.
Yes, sir.
But I know that's coming.
Right.
The main thing was expenditure. We 5 months into the year. How much expenditure have we expended for the 5 months compared to what was budgeted?
Oh, okay.
You see, it
Okay.
gives me a
I'll give
better
you-
feel for.
Okay, I'll break it down some more. For the general fund, I'll break it down for you some more for the general fund. Is that what you
Yeah,
want?
Just
Okay.
give me a good percentage of, what's left.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going over what
Okay,
is
yeah.
budgeted, et cetera, that sort of thing.
I do
get a
know.
better feel
Yes,
for
sir.
it.
Okay,
I understand what you're asking for. We
Yeah.
can get that done.
You do?
Yes, sir, no problem.
Okay. Now, just give me a better feel for where we are.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, when I look at this, it's like, oh, we got a net loss and, yeah, it
Okay,
just,
I will.
okay,
I
thank you.
understand. Thank
Any
you.
other questions for Ms. Webb? And I'm going to give you a proper introduction. Christine, thank you for
Yes.
coming. And
Thank you.
your Director of Compliance is your official title.
That's right, yes.
So, yes, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
All right, let's move on then. If nothing else for the Assistant County Administrator report, let's go to number 8 on our agenda, the ARPA update. And Mr. Munson, Hank, if you can come forward, please. We always love seeing you.
I've been looking forward to this report. This is hopefully the final report of the last 2 years of obligating the fund. And so we have
The assessor was supposed to present before you.
I would love to sit down and let Rebony go.
Oh, okay. And Ms. Sanders, I am so sorry. I jumped right over top you.
Thank you.
Ms. Sanders, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a quick, I'm trying to go over the slide that you have about legal residency. I've been invited to actually kind of bring you up to date of where we're at with legal residency and legal residency exemption. I know that's a hot topic every year, and so I'm prepared to kind of go over where we're at with our office with regards to those applications and the impact with regards to the adjustments in values that we've thus so far seen.
Could I just make sure everybody could hear her in the back? Okay, in the public, okay.
I'll speak up.
Because this is important stuff. Not that the others wasn't, but this is important.
Okay, we have the room. Okay, so where we're going to start, briefly kind of give you an idea what the legal residency is about. For those who are listening, legal residency special assessment, some people may look at that or refer to it as homestead exemption, but in South Carolina, it's the legal residency special assessment. It's governed by the South Carolina Code of Laws. The statute is there. And basically for primary owners to apply for this exemption, they have to make application. They must own and occupy the property to claim the exemption, and the exemption is actually vetted through the assessor's office and is granted to a property owner, and it exempts them from paying school operations mills, so it's more than just a 2% difference between the 4% and the 6%. So that's what we're going to discuss today. So this is kind of give you an updated idea where we're at in Beaufort County. The slides are kind of redundant, but I just want to give you a different view of them, of how we are looking with regards to our property owners that are receiving the exemption. As you can see, for the last 3 years, I presented where we've changed in the number of property owners that are receiving the exemption. This slide is particularly dealing with the legal residency properties that are improved, comparison to those properties that are improved, commercial or residential. They have to have some kind of structure on the property. It excludes anything vacant or anything that is that does not have an actual structure on the property. So as you can see, when you're making those comparisons, for 2024, we have exceeded the number of property owners who are receiving the legal residency versus properties that are improved, that are at 6%. That would include commercial improved, second homes that are improved, those type of properties. So you can see the trend, where it's going from 22 to 24, and where we're at with the number of property owners that are receiving the legal residency compared to non-legal residency. So we've reached that, we've actually exceeded that amount. The next slides kind of give you another depiction of that, to kind of, give you another visual, same information, just a different visual. And you can see the trend and how it has changed over a period of time with regards to improved residential properties receiving legal residency and those that are not approved in our county. And that's countywide data. I'm going to have a slide further along that shows based on your districts. Here, on this particular slide in front of you, give you an idea of what the assessed value is for the properties. Now, there's 3 types of values that we house in the assessor's office. We house your market value, we house your taxable value, but we also house your assessed value. This is the valuation. Each property is used with the millage rate to come up with your taxable tax amount. So the amounts that you see here under the assessed value is a minus exemptions, or minus exempt properties, let's say it like that, exempt properties. So for example, if it's a government-owned property, it would be 0. It would be, if a property owner is a veteran, that assessed amount has already been factored in for those property owners that receive legal residency. So here, you can kind of give a historical view of the assessed amounts compared to legal residency and non-legal residency accounts. Keep in mind that when you're looking at these assessed amounts, when you're looking at the legal residency assessed amounts, those property owners are not paying into the school operation mills. So though that's the amounts that you're looking at, there are not any, that money is not being contributed to the operation. So you can see for 2024, you can see the non-legal residency, our legal residency is slightly below. So it's inching up there with those legal residency accounts that will not be paying into the school operation mills. That's why it's so important that we vet these applications, because that's lost to our schools or our children with regards to the operation mills. They're not being paid into it. So I wanted to kind of give you a historical view of the changes. You can see in 2022, you see where it was $711 million. But you see where we at now? It's $1,025 million. Hope I'm looking at my numbers correctly. So you can see how it's changing. The number of property owners that are receiving this exemption has dramatically changed since 2022, and I'll briefly go over our theory as to why. Here's another visual. It's a duplication. It kind of gives you a chart of seeing where the trend is lying based on the numbers that I just provided to you. You can see the changes in 22 versus 24 with the number of properties, legal versus non-legal residency with their assessed amounts. Here's a breakdown based on your district from 22, 23, and 24. I tried to capture the number of property. All of these are legal residency here. I didn't break it down for non-legal residency. I wanted you to see the number of property that are receiving the exemption in your particular district. So right now we're at 57,000, almost 58,000. I would like to also emphasize that as we speak, people are applying for legal residency. This data is as of Thursday of last week. So our site is up 24/7. And they have until January 15th to apply for the exemption. And our staff is currently vetting those. So the numbers that you see here are old as of the time that I put it together on Thursday. Okay? So that kind of gives you an idea. Now, again, I love a chart. I love a chart. So here's your districts. You can see where the majority of our property owners are at, who's receiving the exemption, the legal residency exemption, primarily in Bluffton. You can see the districts and how the different years. May I ask?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Well, we're wondering, how do we tell what our district is?
okay, so 100, okay, let's see.
St. Helens, I know that.
St. Helens is
I
300.
know that.
So you have 100, 110, and 120 is on this end and south. So let's look at it from this perspective. Everything above 1 to 400 is on the Beaufort end, and everything from 501 through 650 is on the south end. Then you have 700, which is Sheldon, Mr. Dawson's area, and 800 is the Fusky. Does that help?
So which one of those is Bluffton versus Hilton Head?
Hilton Head is 510 through 550, and Bluffton is 600, 610, and 650.
Oh.
In the city of Beaufort, Port Royal?
City of Port, you have 120, which would be Ladies Island. 123 is partial. I think some of that was annexed in Beaufort. You tested my knowledge. 100 is the rural. Rural Beaufort, you would think of Burton. You have 110. So, yeah, some of that's Beaufort. So that's how you can gauge your, does that help?
300 is,
I'm St. Helena.
and 200 is,
Ladies Island. I messed that up, right. 200 is Ladies Island, I had 120, so
120 must be.
So you can see where the influx of property owners that are receiving the actual exemption is in our Bluffton area. Yeah, that's where the 4% is going to more of our property
Who
owners.
is 710 and 800? Look at those.
800 is the Fusky, 700 is Sheldon, and part of, I think, they annexed some part of Yamasee into,
Yeah, okay. Look at the Fuskies, just even.
it's interesting to see how it's laid out,
Yeah.
who's getting the benefit of the legal resident, who's applying and receiving that benefit.
I appreciate you doing bar graphs. Very easy to interpret at a glance.
Yeah.
I have one question.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Ms. Sanders, thank you for the information. Let me ask you this, because you gave some analysis here. Am I to assume that as you, or as people come in to convert to legal residents at 4%, the non-legal residents will be at the 6%?
Correct.
So the school district tax only non-legal residents on there for property taxes to pay for school district, right?
Well, let me say, like, school operations.
School operations.
School debt is not.
No, not
It's
school
from our
debt.
school
Yeah,
operations
yeah, everybody
only.
assumed that, but school operation is basically the 6%. So when we have less 6%ers, the vast majority, everybody is paying a little bit more on the school taxes, on the school operation, right?
Well, the 4%
What's
property owners are exempt from it completely. The only property owners at 4% that pay school operations is ag use. So we're not even considering that in this conversation. With regards to legal residency, that's a part of the legal residency. They're exempt from that line out, that millage rate. That's where I would say that's where the benefit of the exemption is at, not the 2%.
When someone comes in and say, my taxes just went up, chances are it went up because of the 6% assessed value on their property.
It may or may not.
Yeah.
It could be a number of factors. It could be a change in millage or it could be a change in a fee. There could be a change in what is need to run that local. It could be a municipality change. We've had that incident as well. There was change in municipality fees.
Okay.
So we look at it, I wouldn't say holistically, but we look at the account when they come in and say, well, my taxes went up. Let's see why. If it's a legal residency issue and they're claiming that property is their primary residence, the first thing we do is say, let's go ahead and get you applying for that legal residency and see if you can qualify for that to bring that down. But in some cases, they already have the exemption, and it's other factors, and we have to have those conversations.
What I was getting after is that as more and more legal residents receive the 4%, we have fewer and fewer non-legal residents who's paying school district operation, that's all.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and if I can, and obviously that's out of our control, because that comes
I know.
from the state of South Carolina Act 388, in which they're the ones that specified that school taxes are only, the school operations are to come from non-legal residences, commercial properties, vacant property. So whatever the school budget is, it's then divided up among that group.
I
So
know.
you're exactly right. Whenever someone's tax bill goes up dramatically, there's a good chance that for some reason
Fewer
they've
and fewer.
been pushed to the 6%. And when they get pushed to the 6%, that means they also are paying for the school operations tax, which is why it is so much more. So again, that's why you see people. There's a big difference between 4% and 6%,
Yes.
and it's mostly because of the, as Ms. Sanders said, the 2% is not that big a deal. It's the school operations tax that gets pushed to those people. That's the big difference.
Yeah, correct, he's correct.
Yeah.
And I believe part of it could be the reevaluation that was done.
Well-
Some people's property will be assessed higher.
Well, primarily, the revaluation that occurred in 2023, the cap value was our properties that were capped in Beaufort County as a whole, about 73 to 74% of the properties received some sort of a cap. So therefore, they didn't experience, their major increase did not come from the reassessment as many believe. To be honest with you, the impact did not impact taxpayers. We only received a little over 3,000 appeals, surprisingly. And some of those appeals, I would say about half of those were individuals seeking the legal residency and just filled the form out and said, hey, I live here. And they saw 6% on their assessment notice. So the impact, because they were sheltered by the capping, yeah, there was an increase in market value, but the capping sheltered them, and therefore they didn't get impacted so much from that perspective. But if millage changes, of course, or fees increase or added on, of course, then their taxes will increase. So there's other factors that could play into that number, or the tax bill.
Any other questions for Ms. Sanders?
Very good.
Can I continue, sir?
Good. Continue. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So continuing on, I just wanted to give you an idea. You're probably going to ask, well, Ms. Sanders, you just said that we're having an increase in number of property owners receiving the legal residency in Beaufort County, but why does the number of applications are decreasing? And there's several factors to that. The application window for 2024 is still open. It's open until January 15th of 2025 for the 2024 tax year. Also, within our office, working within the code, I've made a decision to make some changes on our processing changes. So when I say processing changes, in the past, it was a policy in our office if a taxpayer had to bring back their SC 1040s because it was a part year or they just moved here, then we would have them fill out a whole entire complete application and start from the beginning with driver's license, vehicle registration, and it was daunting. Well, I made the decision that they just need to bring that one piece back. Bring back, when you file your full year tax return, bring that, and then we'll accept that. And typically what happens, we review it and make the adjustment on the account to make sure that they continue to receive their exemption. So no additional application is needed. There are other processes changes that I made within the department. Military, for example, they only have to come back to bring their ID when it expires, when they go to do their second or third or fourth re-enlistment. So they'll just bring that ID back to show, hey, I got another 4 or 8 years. And so they're not putting in a whole entire another application. So we've changed those kind of processes so it's not as daunting on ourselves as well as the taxpayer. So that's one of the major reasons why it went from 10,542 applications down to 6,300 so far. Additionally, we, based on our observations and watching and studying the numbers or the number of applicants, COVID drew a lot of people to Beaufort. They came in droves, and they came and made Beaufort their home. They're claiming the legal residency. So in 2022, we will feel confident that a lot of that had to do with the migration south and people applying for the exemption and receiving the exemption. So that's why the numbers are there. But the window is still open for '24, and they can still apply for the legal residency. So I'm not going to read through all of this, but I wanted to give you proactive, reactive thing. When I come before the group, I talk about our proactive taxpayers and reactive taxpayers, and we push proactive taxpayers. Again, the window to apply for legal residency begins like January 16th to January 15th the following tax year. Our proactive taxpayers take advantage of that period of time. They try to get those applications in the mail or apply online typically to our office and get that to us so we can vet those applications. In non-reassessment years, we send out notices to taxpayers, letting them know that their legal residency was removed for whatever reason, so they have an opportunity to come in and apply before tax bills go out. But I will say that we do piggyback off the auditor. The auditor sends out annual notifications to property owners at 6%, so he can generate the personal property tax bills to get that data. I appreciate when they do that because it helps us, because at the beginning of the year, it's another way of saying, hey, you're at 6%, come on and visit the assessor's office. Then we also send out these postcards that welcome people to Beaufort when they have a deed transfer and tell them the different exemptions in our department. That's another notification that we're trying to get people to be more proactive. So if they have a deed transfer, we're not looking, we just send out a little postcard. Hopefully that they'll respond to that card. So then we also do outreach programs. Y'all are aware that we're out in the community. We had 3 additional events in December. So if anyone listening, if you haven't made to one of our events, please check our website and come to one of our events. Staff at the events will sit down with the taxpayer and help them fill out a 4% application online. Okay, if they're having difficulty or they're not comfortable with technology or cannot make that drive over, meet us at one of the events and they will help you through that and take your application online while you're there. The deadline is January 15th, so they have until January 15th of 25 to apply for 24. Now, the reactive taxpayer, they wait till the tax bills are mailed. This year, they went out sometime after the week of November, first week of November. I can't really speak to that date when they went out. But since then, before the mailing of the issuance of the tax bills, we were getting about 30 applications a day, and our staff was caught up. As of the mailing or the issuing of the tax bills, we received already 708 applications as of Thursday of last week. We're getting about 65 to 70 applications a day. Okay, and those staff members that are working those applications or vetting applications do have to speak to our taxpayers when they call or they come by the office. So it does slow down. So when taxpayers are reactive, the problem lies in, for them, is that it only gives them 2 months to apply for legal residency. Remember the deadline date, January 15th. So here we are, November, December, January 15th. It shortens their window. So if you can encourage the different ones in your communities and your constituents, let them know, be proactive and not reactive, and take good use of that time so they're not in that pile of people, like 700 and some applications that we have to review. It helps them as well. Now, to talk briefly about refunds, taxpayers can qualify for a refund if they pay the tax bill, they apply for the legal residency prior to January 15th, and we have not reviewed it as of yet. Once we adjust the account, we will have a refund issued, or we will send out a rebill if necessary. Those are done without penalty because they've paid it already. If they haven't paid it, they will incur a penalty. But if they paid the bill before January 15th, have an application in before January 15th, they will get an adjustment, and an adjustment will be sent to them. If an application is received after the deadline of January 15th, then the owner must pay the amount that's owed on the bill and request for a refund and go through the legal residency refund process. Now, when we get down to waiver of penalties and interest, penalties and interest cannot be waived because of delay in applying for the legal residency or because the tax bills went out later in the year. Those two occurrences is not a county error. The county law is very clear. In order for an adjustment or to a penalty or interest to be waived, it must be a county error. Inundation of applications received by the assessor's office is not warrant a waiving of penalties. The code of law does allow for taxpayers to receive a refund if they determine that they may qualify for the legal residency. They can make an application in our office. They still have to provide the documents that we required and demonstrate that they are qualified for that exemption, and they can actually get a refund for upwards of 3 years in the arrears. Additionally, when a refund is sought by a taxpayer, the refund request it goes before, if it's after January 15th, it goes before the county auditor, the assessor, auditor, and treasurer for a vote for the refund. The committee is only voting about the refund. The committee does not approve the legal residency application. The legal residency application approval is housed with the assessor's office and vetted by the assessor's office per the South Carolina Code of Law. County council does not have the statutory authority to waive penalties or delay the payment of penalties or when penalties are applied. I think that's the conclusion of my slide, yes.
I have a question on this one, Ebony. The very first one, penalties can only be waived by county error. How is it not a county error if it was a late issuance of tax bills?
Well, it's not a county error because in the late issuance, if the property owner, if the county receives, the treasurer receives permission from the Department of Revenue to extend or when they're going to mail those tax bills out, that's not a county error because as long as they're due and payable by January 15th. So as long as they have that bill before enough time and the first penalties applied January 15th, that is not a county error. Now, the reasoning for delaying delaying the mailing that tax bill, that's a discussion for the county treasurer, because from our perspective, that is not a county error when the bills go out. But again, that may be better answered by the county treasurer with regards to the lateness or when, I wouldn't say lateness, when the bills are mailed.
I got caught up in that last year for a constituent, that's why I'm asking. Literally, there's no county error.
There's not a county error.
Okay, so let's just be clear on that. Yeah, got it.
Yes, Mr. Passman.
There is a situation that happens all the time. Homeowner puts their house in a trust, which now changes the deed, which then triggers your office to say, we've got to take a look at this. Is this now a 6% property? And so that's one, and obviously the death of a spouse changes things. Those are two critical happenings that people are not aware of, that they need to come to you to reapply for the 4%.
Correct. And you know, I can help the answer, well, it's not really a question, your statement, to add to your statement or to elaborate on your statement. If the property's joint tenants right of survivorship and one of the individuals pass away, we do not remove the legal residency.
Okay.
If it has JTRS on it. We just keep that in place. With regards to the trust, because the trust owns the property,
Right.
we actually follow through. Remember, we have a mailing from the county auditor, because we already moved that property to 6%. So they'll get that auditor notification. They had that opportunity. They will get the little postcard that says, welcome to Beaufort, because we don't know who's in the trust. They get a little postcard saying, hey, welcome to Beaufort, and here are all our benefits that you can apply for. Then they're going to get an assessment notice that's going to say in the top right, in a non-reassessment year, it's going to say 4% removed, and then finally they'll get the tax bill. So there'll be multiple opportunities to alert them to say, hey, come in and let's address this before they get the tax. But you're correct. Those are occurrences when that deed comes, we do not know who's the beneficiary of the trust, because the law is very clear. We need to know who's the income beneficiary of the
So
trust.
hopefully people who are watching this or will view this later on will be informed.
Correct.
That is something that they may well experience at some time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Let me just say that I actually had this happen to me where I refinanced and we adjusted the deed, and when we adjusted the name on the deed, then it kicked back to 6%. And I can tell you that it's better to go ahead and pay whatever you think or pay the tax bill, because if you don't pay the tax bill come January 15th, you will have penalties then that start to accrue. And you'll, again, people call me all the time and want me to get rid of their penalties on their tax bills, and I say, I cannot break the law. That is actually written by the state of South Carolina and how that operates. So again, we cannot ever get rid of tax penalties for folks. So people are better off going ahead and paying the full amount or as much as they think they owe while they wait then for it to be approved.
Or when they actually do the refinancing, I'm gonna be a little bit more proactive. Go ahead and just visit our website and go ahead and just put the application in. We can always look at it from a duplicate standpoint, but if you just go ahead and be proactive and put the application in, apply and get it, then that's the best scenario there with that
Yes,
situation.
ma'am. No, I agree. Any other questions?
Oh, very
And,
informative,
yes.
thank you.
I have one.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Brown.
So if my spouse passes away, my taxes will go to 6%?
If you have JTROS on the property, it will not. But if your spouse,
okay.
but if your spouse passes away and you do not,
Oh.
yes. Let me give you a prime example. My husband and I, this is a real life example. My husband, I'm Ebony Sanders. My husband is Joe Sanders. His father is Joe Sanders, and our son is Joe Sanders.
Oh, boy.
And neither of them have Joe 1, 2, or 3. They're just Joe Sanders, and Joe Sanders.
Okay.
Or why we keep repeating the same thing, I don't know. But how will the assessor's office know
Yeah.
that Joe Sanders 1 is same as Joe Sanders, my Joe Sanders, and my son Joe Sanders? We would not know. We're not into genealogy like that. So we have them reapply to recertify to see who all the individuals are and to meet those criteria. But unless they have, now if they have JTRS, that's different. Then, of
We do.
course,
Okay,
we will leave the 4% on the property.
I will leave the 4%.
Once you file, you have to file a death certificate, and then we'll remove it at that point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Ms. Sanders? And Ms. Sanders is our assessor for Beaufort County. Thank you, and again, we appreciate you doing those community events and getting out there and educating people. I think that's been wonderful.
Oh, you're welcome.
Just want to thank Ms. Sanders. She's been very helpful to me, so I just want to publicly say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Ebony.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sanders.
And she's gonna get a lot of calls about joining.
Yes. We've only increased those daily. And let's move on then to number 8. Hank?
That's all we are?
That's where we're at. Oh, right up front, you stayed right there, so.
I'm still excited to make this report.
Yes.
I have some slides here in a second. I've given you, a few months ago, I gave a very long one that went through all the expenditures of ARPA. Last month, I gave a shorter one that said what we had to do to make sure we obligated all the funds. And today, we'll show how we are obligating all the funds. And here we go. Their number has been the number since we got it in 2022 of $37,317,446. The first magic number is coming up on us at December 31st, 2024, which is obligation. And we have a couple items on this agenda today, and resulting from that on December 9, that will close out the remainder. The last part is that have to be spent by 2026. For example, we met with Beaufort Jasper about the Morgan Road water line, for example, to have a kickoff meeting a week or so ago to make sure that that timeline fits within those. So that's our next job, is to make sure that all the timelines stay. So, final reading for the purchase of the health department building. For that, ended up being 2.72, but there's been some other expenditures for the interim move of the health department, which actually is upstairs. Currently, the administration is upstairs, and the vital records is at our Duke Street building. Just in case anybody's looking for the vital records, you can get it at our Human Service building on Duke Street. And the health department itself, the actual clinical health department, is still on the King Street property. That'll be we're only going to move them one time next year once we finally upfit this building. A little PSA. Broadband Initiative is coming to you also today. The RFP, we got the bids last week. Vetted the bids, went from 4 to 2 to 1, and that'll be before this committee to obligate those funds. You also have on your agenda tonight the Broadband Long Driveway Program, which you approved last year in a resolution. However, the end date of that resolution was 2024, and it's supposed to be 2026. And that actually is timed out well. You have an amendment to that resolution, because with some projects I'll talk about later, and running these new lines, this will also be an opportunity to remarket that long driveway program. So when somebody gets it in front of their house and it's too far for the provider to pay to get it to their house, we can help them with that. So that's what you'll see here shortly. That was a pre-approved program. This is an amendment to that. You're also going to hear from Captain from the Sheriff's Department about what we mentioned last month, which is to reuse the funding that we had originally set aside for the Reconstruction era signage program that they declined in the end, to help with a public safety program to match some of the efforts within the municipalities to increase public safety. And contract coverage, that is we have a mental health program in the detention center. And the way that that agreement was written didn't obligate a number, and we work against as we spend it. It's not, everything else we do a contract for a total number and we spend against that. There was no total number. There's a budgeted amount of $1 million, but we only can obligate as we go. So that it will be more than, that'll be expended at almost to the dollar, and that's why that number at the bottom is a 0, which is because there is no more money to obligate. And so I'll show you one more slide. I've shown it every time because there's still 2 years to spend this, and things can happen. So we're still going to maintain some options in case something falls through. A project becomes delayed, runs into a problem, etc. We still, the way the rules are, obligate by December 31st, 2024. If, and this is from the federal workshop that we watched whenever it was with the South Carolina Association of Counties. If something doesn't come through, you can move those funds to a project or expenditure that either was obligated or expended prior to December 31, 2024. So these are just a couple examples of expenditures that we made from general fund purchases that would be eligible for repayment, so we would guarantee that we wouldn't lose money. So that is the end of my report.
Any questions for Hank? Yes, Ms. Brown.
What is the Buckwalter Properties? What was that?
That's the property that we recently, I believe it was either last month or month before, are contributing to Beaufort Memorial Hospital for medical office building and workforce housing.
There on Buckwalter Parkway.
Yes, ma'am.
By the, okay.
333 and 335 Buckwalter
Oh,
Parkway.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Munson? Thank you, Hank. Good job on all this and keeping things going. I know it's been complicated and we've worked towards, so thank you very much. All right, let's move on then. In our agenda, next up is update from Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer and Authority, and we have Mr. Stone, Charlie Stone, who is the Director of Government Affairs, for an update. Mr. Stone, thank you for being here today.
So I haven't even presented yet, and Ms. Tabernick already asked me for a financial commitment, and then I've been heckled by John O'Toole, so it's a tough crowd here tonight.
Well, I wouldn't be doing my job in District 6 if I didn't.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
Thanks for your sense of humor.
But Charlie Stone, I'm the Director of Government Affairs at Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer. I did want to mention that Ms. Verna Arnett, our General Manager, she had planned on being here this afternoon, but she did have a conflict. And I think I speak for Ms. Arnett as well as all of our leadership at Beaufort Jasper and our staff when I say that we truly appreciate the partnership of the county, and we appreciate the opportunity to come here this afternoon and update you on the authority. Jared and Hank warned me that y'all have a packed committee agenda, and so I'm going to do my best to breeze through these slides. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this slide, but I did want to just provide a quick overview on our system. Our organization services unincorporated Beaufort County and Jasper County. We also serve the municipalities of Beaufort, Hardeeville, Port Royal, and the town of Bluffton. We also serve the PSDs of Hilton Head Island as wholesale customers. And we have 2 water treatment plants, one that sits on the Savannah River at Purrysburg, and then a second water plant on 170 at Chelsea, which I think is where most of our customers associate Beaufort Jasper as being. We also have 3 mechanical wastewater treatment plants. We have a plant in Port Royal, a plant at Cherry Point, and then a wastewater treatment plant in Hardeeville. In terms of the authority and where we're at presently, these are our realities, our challenges. It's no secret that Beaufort County and Jasper County are growing areas. Nationally, we're a leading area for growth. We have a great level of in-migration. People want to live here. People want to be a part of our community. And our infrastructure challenges at the authority, they're not exclusive to our organization. We've seen recent investments that have been necessary on the transportation side. We've also seen the recent school bond referendum in 2023. And I'm sure many of the council members, many of the staff and residents in the room probably saw over the summer, there was an Island Packet article that was published, and it highlighted that on June 21st, the authority reached an all-time high for water consumption at just over 35 million gallons of our 39 million gallon plant capacity. Similarly, on the wastewater side, we also have challenges with capacity. Our Cherry Point wastewater treatment plant is at about just at 90% capacity. And in addition to our large water and wastewater plants, we also have crucial rehab and replacement projects across the region that are of utmost importance. In addition to some of these capacity challenges, water and wastewater construction is extremely specialized construction. From 2019 to 2024, we've seen about a 250% increase in cost. Just to provide one project as an example, the design of our Cherry Point wastewater treatment plant began in 2020. And at the time that we began that design, we received an estimate of just at $31 million. Over the summer, we bid that project, and our low bid was $107 million. And so we went from $31 million to $107 million on a single project in a 4-year span. And I know that's a reality that the county's facing and other governmental agencies across the region are also facing. We also have some new unfunded mandates through EPA that were handed to us in April. And in short, we're in a scenario where capacity fees, rates need to keep pace with our cost, as well as keep pace with the necessary infrastructure that we need across the region. So with our realities and where we're at, it's necessary for us to invest in our system. Our capital improvement program is really our tool that allows us to invest in our system, but also invest in the community. And I wanted to note that it's been a very exhaustive process over the past 12 months. Our engineering leadership team, our staff, they've done a fantastic job. They've conducted a needs assessment on every single project in our CIP. Presently, we have 102 projects in our CIP that account for just at $590 million. Many of our projects are regional in nature. They impact multiple jurisdictions. This is just a chart that shows the large water and wastewater treatment plant expansions and new construction that is within that 3-year CIP. And I did want to highlight just quickly some of our noteworthy projects that are in process. The Purrysburg Water Plant expansion is probably our most noteworthy project, and it's really a top priority for the authority, but also for all of our governmental agencies across the region. This project is under construction. Right now, we're anticipating a completion of summer of 2025. I mentioned that this summer we hit an all-time high for water consumption. This project is how we address that issue. Cherry Point, this is probably number 2 on the list behind Purrysburg. We're planning a groundbreaking ceremony coming up, but this will expand the Cherry Point wastewater treatment plant from 7.5 million gallons to 11.25. We're anticipating completion of this project December of 2026. This is the wastewater treatment plant that services Bluffton. It also services Hardeeville and portions of unincorporated Beaufort County and Jasper County. At Buckwalter, we're under construction with an elevated storage tank. It's going to add 1.5 million gallons to our elevated storage. This project's also going to help us with just stabilizing flow and pressure in our system. And so it's a great project for Bluffton and really all of south of the Broad. So this is something that I'm really excited about. We have about $45 million in our capital improvement program presently that's related to infrastructure that will benefit our military installations. And we recently worked with the county, we worked with Jared and Hank to apply for some grant dollars through Veterans Affairs. And we were awarded $4.6 million for 2 separate projects. I really wanted to commend Colonel Pugliese because he's just been fantastic throughout this whole process and helped us go up to Columbia and grab dollars and bring them back down here. Really, for every dollar that we can get from the state or from the federal level, it's a dollar that we don't have to put on the backs of our customers. And right now, we have $45 million in our CIP. But I've spoken to our leadership at Beaufort Jasper and our engineers, and we truly believe that we're just scraping the surface on what we should be doing in terms of supporting our installations and supporting mission assurance. We've been in constant contact with David Trail and Mary Ryan and our commanding officers at the base. We actually have a meeting coming up about a water line project on Berkeley Bridge that's the main water line going on to Paris Island, but looking at replacing that line and just really continuing this partnership moving forward and continuing the effort to make sure that our infrastructure is up to the standard of the military and is supporting them continuing to be in Beaufort for a very, very long time. So how do we fund these projects? Last week on November 21st, our board approved a $100 million bond issuance, and we're planning on completing bonding in phases over the next 3 fiscal years. Right now, we're anticipating about $450 million in bonding. We are going to evaluate this on a continual basis, and so as new projects arise or if we discover external funding, it will inform our moves and our strategy as we get further into this process. To support our level of bonding, this year we raised rates by about 9 to 10% across the board. Right now we're anticipating a 5% rate increase for fiscal year 2026 and then subsequent rate increases in the future. In addition to rates, we also had an extremely lengthy process around our capacity fees. Over the summer months, we hosted developer workshops with the development community. Our goal was to be as transparent as possible throughout this process. I understand from my economic development days that capacity fees can be a burden to the development community. Sometimes they can be a burden to workforce housing. And so we had these workshops and we asked the development community, how can we make this more bearable? And we heard a few things. The first was we had nobody tell us to stop building capacity. I think there was a real understanding from the developers that these infrastructure projects are a necessity for everybody across the region. The second thing we heard was, is there a way to provide certainty and a future outlook? And so with that in mind, we approved a 3-year phase-in plan. Our board approved a 3-year phase-in plan with that first increase on February 1st of 2025. The third item we heard from those workshops was, is there a way to mitigate the carrying cost? And so right now at Beaufort Jasper, 100% of your capacity fee is paid at pre-con. And so if you're a developer, you pay that fee at pre-con and then you carry that development fee all the way to the end of construction until you make $1. And so what we did in our new plan is we staggered the increase to being paid at meters. And so you pay essentially the same capacity fee at pre-con and then the increase is at meters. And so you get further into your process before you pay that second payment. This is another item that I'm very passionate about, and I wanted to commend the county for their leadership on the project out in Labico, the water line extension. Y'all are using ARPA funds, and it's truly a project that is going to impact people's lives out there. And so Beaufort Jasper, we're very happy to support the county's effort out in Dale. Last month, the county again stepped up and showed a lot of leadership in the $1 million set-aside for Alljoy. And then we've enjoyed a great partnership with the town of Bluffton and the county on the Stony Creek project. But I know Chairman Passman spoke to it quite a bit. Across Beaufort County and Jasper County, we have some unsewered areas that lack public sewer or public water. And oftentimes, there's some sort of public health issue that's associated with that, or an environmental issue. And so Beaufort Jasper, we've formed an ad hoc underserved committee that's focused on identifying these areas and then working in partnership with our other jurisdictions to find a solution. So I think we've got a great beginning of this initiative with these 3 projects, but we're looking forward to continuing to work with the county in the future and the state as well. And so how can y'all help? I would say, really just through partnership. I think everybody's kind of heard about what Beaufort Jasper's going through, and there's a lot of parallels with some of the county's challenges around transportation. But we truly appreciate the county. We appreciate our municipalities, and I think we have a great team at Beaufort Jasper with, Verna's new at the helm at Beaufort Jasper, and we have new leadership with Paul Vinson and Michael Hansen, but just continuing to work together for the benefit of our residents. So, and I'll field any questions.
Any questions from Mr. Yeah, go ahead.
Going back to your slide about critical infrastructure projects and raising the capacity fees, you said you had workshops with developers. Were those advertised, those workshops, publicly advertised?
I don't want to misquote. I know we have a developer list, developers that have gone through our process, and I know we sent it out to everybody on that list. I'm not sure if we had a public, if we published that, but I can find out and let you know.
I would be interested in that because I have, some have said they were surprised by it, and I find that a little odd that they would be surprised if you had workshops and public meetings. So, and that includes commercial and like housing developments.
That's correct. We hosted them throughout the month of May and June, and then we did have to have public meetings on the actual rate increases, and the rate increases and the capacity fee increases were absolutely published. And we had a great turnout to our developer meetings, and it was really different contractors, engineering firms from the build community that we often work with.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Yep, Ms. Capra, go ahead.
So, Charlie, when we met, I did ask a question, I'm going to ask it again. With all the growth happening, particularly in Hardeeville, do you anticipate reaching a point where you can't provide water?
So we are required to provide service through state
What happens
statute.
when you can't meet capacity?
So the Perrysburg plant expansion is going to take our plant system from 39 MGD to 54 MGD. And so we hit that all-time high at 35 this summer. And so our expansion of Perrysburg and then our expansion at Cherry Point and our wastewater treatment plants that are presently in our CIP, they're purposefully meant to address the challenges around growth and prepare us for the future. In terms of our requirements, we are required by state statute to serve our customers, and Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer, we are not involved with land use policy. So the municipalities, the counties, as they're permitting developments, we have an obligation to the customer to serve that development. So, in terms of how it gets there, there may be absolutely, there could be some cost on the resident or the development community, but again, we're not involved with land use policy.
I have one other question.
Ms. Howard and Mr.
You
Glover.
mentioned, do you want to go first?
You go ahead.
You mentioned unfunded mandates by EPA. Could you just give us a few examples of, I know you don't know the dollar amounts probably, but just what those were that have come up recently?
Yeah, so the unfunded mandate that I referred to is, it was handed to us in April, and it's regarding PFAS, which is the forever chemicals. And so right now, I believe the initial estimate was right around $100 million for us to get our system up to par to treat the water up to standard. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Glover.
Yes. Well, just want to, sometimes in making a presentation, you can't say what you really want to say. So one of the things that Charlie did mention is that Beaufort Jasper is now under new leadership. And I can tell you that leadership is crucial. Previous leaders did not address the problem. There is a lot of problem at Beaufort Jasper dealing with the infrastructure that need to be replaced, et cetera, et cetera. And then they're trying to expand at the same time. And it's going to be difficult to do all of that, but they are right now, in my opinion, they're addressing the problem. They recognize that they have to invest in infrastructure right now, and I think that's why they're issuing the bonds to just catch up and then expand as they go along. But it's not going to be, I don't think, in my opinion, any major expansion right now in Beaufort Jasper. I think they really got to deal with infrastructure and resources that they currently have. So just want to say that, but they do have a leadership team now, and it's all fresh, and I think they are not burying their heads in the sand. They're addressing the problem.
Yes, sir. Well, Mr. Glover, I appreciate you saying that. And just to highlight one additional project, the project that we worked with the county on, it's actually to decommission the Laurel Bay wastewater treatment plant, which is a 0.35 MGD plant. That plant was built in the early 1960s. And so it's in poor condition. And it's amazing that that's the plant that services the main housing community for the air station. And so through the state dollars and through the partnership with the county and Colonel Puglise's efforts, we're able to decommission that plant. We're going to build a pump station and force main, bring them into our Port Royal wastewater treatment plant, and bring that up to 2024 standards. And so I think, that's just one example, but there's projects across Beaufort County and Jasper County similar to that. And this $590 million CIP, that's our tier 1 projects. There's certainly other needs down the road that we will have to face when the time comes.
Good. Any other questions? And again, Mr. Stone, I think you're doing a great job. I mean, we've seen more from Beaufort Jasper in the past year since you've become with them, and obviously I know you were a great loss for the economic development community. So, but again, thank you for coming out today, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate everyone's patience here. We're going to now move on to our actual agenda. Item number 10, recommend approval to council of an ARPA project for public safety support, the purchase of license plate reading cameras for the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office, fiscal impact $262,291.34. And we have the...
We need a
Beaufort-
motion
I'll make
and
the
second.
motion.
Oh,
I'll make the motion.
okay, make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, and we have someone here from the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. You can please introduce yourself. I'm sorry that I don't have your information.
We have two someones.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Go.
I am Brian Baird with the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. I'm a captain. I'm also the Special Projects Officer for the sheriff. And basically, as you may well be aware, that over the last year and a half or so, we've seen an increase in some gun violence, what most people refer to as drive-by shootings occurring throughout the county and the municipalities. Earlier this year, we had what we feared, where on January 1st, a 14-year-old boy was playing a video game in his house when people pulled up in front of the house and discharged weapons into the house, striking him and killing him on the spot. LJ, like I said, he passed right at the scene, and at that point, we knew we had to take action, and the sheriff directed me to start researching ways to deal with this increase in gun violence. I reached out to the municipalities, found out that most of them were in the early stages of implementing license plate readers and cameras. I then began to look at what they were using or looking to use, as well as going to some other municipalities like Charleston that was dealing with a lot of gun violence, Savannah, North Charleston, Hardeeville, Jasper County, and we were able to identify 3 different companies that are really the leaders in the industry, I would say, for license plate readers, cameras and such. And we invited those companies to come to Beaufort, do presentations to the sheriff's office. The sheriff actually sat in on every one of those presentations, as well as my general counsel and other members of the sheriff's office. We started researching cost, looking at identifying locations where we felt we really needed cameras, more cameras, and license plate readers. For those of you who may or may not know what a license plate reader is, it is a device that when a license plate passes in front of it, it captures a picture of the license plate, the back of the car, maybe a little video clip of the car passing by. You don't see the people in the car or anything like that. It's not like it's able to look inside your car or anything like that. It's just capturing a clip of the back of the car with the license plate. At that point, the first presentation came from a company named Flock Cameras. It's a very popular company with a lot of law enforcement agencies. Their presentation was identified approximately 65 locations where we felt we really needed either a camera or a license plate reader or both. At the same time, while these presentations were ongoing, we were looking at funding options. We found a Department of Public Safety, South Carolina Department of Public Safety grant that was open. We applied. Unfortunately, we were not going to hear back from them until October. And we proceeded forward with hosting these companies. Flock came in, gave an estimate to install the 65 cameras at about $550,000. We then had, I believe it was Verkada Camera that came next. They were the next company that came in. We were looking at them for a little bit less. We weren't looking at them to provide license plate readers. We were looking at them to provide cameras. We received some estimates from them. And then Recor, another license plate reader company, was the last one to come in, and we received their estimate. Again, we were looking at 65 cameras. It was almost identical to Flock's for the first year. However, during the second year is when we started to see a vast difference in the price. Flock was going to cost approximately $181,000 for the second year. Recor we were looking at them, they were going to be, we believed at the time, somewhere for the 65, around 35, 40 to 40,000. A pretty major difference right there. And during the Flock presentation, when the sheriff himself asked, well, what are we receiving for $181,000 the second year? And he told us that if something happened to the cameras, they'd be replaced. The sheriff said, okay, if a hurricane wipes them out, you're going to replace them? No, you have to deal with your insurance for that. If a car runs one over, you're going to replace it? No, you have to deal with the insurance company for that. But if one were to break down, then we'd come replace it. And the sheriff literally asked, do your cameras break down that often that we have to pay $181,000? When Recor came in and said their estimate for the second year was, the low estimate was actually 31 something, but up to 40 depending on price increases. That was good information for us, and we were very excited about that. Unfortunately, during early part of October this year, we found out we did not receive the grant from the Department of Public Safety, which changed everything for us. I was really hoping for that. However, the sheriff, speaking with the county administrator stepped up and said, we may have some leftover ARPA funds, which literally took me from almost despair to excitement when he announced, the sheriff called me about that. Then speak with Mr. Robinson and Mr. Amundsen. We've been coming up with a plan. We cut back our cameras quite a bit due to the amount of money that was available. We currently are looking at using Recor, having 23 cameras at 20 sites. 3 sites would have 2 cameras at each site, spread out from Hilton Head through Beaufort, through the unincorporated areas. Now, we're looking at trying to keep pace. Beaufort City has their own cameras they're installing. Bluffton has their own cameras they're installing. And Hilton Head has chosen to get their own cameras and they are installing. So we were lucky enough that with them doing that, it would cut down on the number of cameras we'd need initially. So I was able to come up with a draft that keeps us closer to the amount the county administrator told me to look at, or told the sheriff to look at. 23 of their cameras using approximately $199,000 of the money, and that is with that company giving us a 23% reduction in the cost in exchange for us agreeing to participate and give them feedback and help them make their systems even better. So we have that. And then at the same time, Verkada Cameras came out with a new product called the Command Connector that allows the feed from our traffic cameras to process through one of their devices to make it so we can search that feed and go back and look at things. So it's their, Recor has their system that we can search, and Verkada has their system that we can search. And the combination of the two, the Recor cameras and the Verkada Command Connector device, we need 2 of those devices in literally every one of our traffic cameras for the county could feed through their device. The total cost for 2024, that's including mounting cameras on some of Dominion Energy is going to allow us to mount cameras on their wooden poles and connect to their electrical feeds. Palmetto Electric has the same type program, so we're going to do that. The SIM cards we have to buy to connect up to the feed for the cameras and such. The whole cost for the first year we're looking at is right about $230,000. The second year licensing and such would come up to about $131,000, to just $31,000, bringing our total to about $262,000, which is the number you saw Mr. Munson put up earlier. And that is what we're looking to do. We want to have the safest areas in the unincorporated, just like the incorporated areas. The municipalities are moving forward with their cameras and their ALPRs. We're trying to keep pace with them and work with them literally to cover the entire county. And that's what this project's actually about.
All right, any questions?
I have a question. So I want to mention for the public, this is sole source purchase. They're, they have proprietary software. So would you anticipate in the future purchasing more cameras?
I certainly hope
You hope so, okay.
We intend to include it in our capital improvement projects for next year.
Okay. And when we talked earlier, I asked what was the timeline. You said maybe January?
The plan at this point is if the county council approves this on December 9th, the morning of the 10th, I will call Recor the night of the 9th, hopefully with great news. And they have assured me that we can effect the purchase, get the contracts all in place before December 31st, and then they plan to be here the second week of January to start installing these.
And would you make a public, like a press release in January when they're installed as possible deterrent to people who now know that we have license plate readers in unincorporated county? I know it doesn't necessarily act as a deterrent, but maybe somebody might think it is.
We can only hope that this is going to help
Help us, yeah.
decrease what's going on currently.
Well, appreciate your work on this. Tell the sheriff we thank you for coming. It's always good to hear from his office.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Brian.
I think it's more of, I'm glad to hear this, because in my area, there's a lot of drive-by shooting.
Yes, sir.
And I'm assuming that you're gonna strategically place it someplace so that it'll be, I don't know, hot pocket areas or what, I don't know. But I guess my concern or my question is, have you seen in areas where they have implemented this camera system, shooting crime is going down, or?
Yes, sir, specifically in North Charleston. North Charleston uses the Record and the Vicata, a combination of the two, and they have actually captured 3 murders on video.
Wow.
And clearly, when the day I was there, second time I was viewing their product, it had happened the night before, and they were actually able to show us the murder happened, and then the tracking of the vehicle leaving there. And they caught the vehicle down the road because the system is connected, so when, like if there's a stolen vehicle or we enter it, and you pass by that tag, it's gonna notify us immediately. This tag just went by and it's listed as stolen. It sends out an email and a text message. So our, like patrol deputies, for instance, that are out patrolling, they can connect up with their phone and receive that message, or over their MDC in their car, they can receive that message as it's happening. So within seconds of that car passing by, they now know this is the car that went by, this is what it looks like, and it just drove past here. So they know the area it's in, they can proceed into the area. If not, park down. When you type in a report, park in a strategic spot where you know the amount, the 3 or 4 second delay. Okay, the car's probably gonna be in this area, so I'm gonna write my report here and see what passes by and what comes up on my phone.
And I saw where you're actually gonna be working with utility companies to maybe utilize their poles, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm trying to imagine on an area like St. Helena, I don't wanna know where you're gonna put it, but I'm just trying to imagine that and stuff. So maybe one day I'll just give the sheriff a call and maybe he might just unveil to me where
I'd be
he's
happy to
placing
sit down with you, sir.
Yeah.
I have a very nice map.
I'm really glad to see something happening because a lot of elderly people, I mean, just in my area, family gathering, et cetera, and then you got drive-by shooting, and we don't know what's happening. But hopefully we can start deterring some of those actions from happening, but I'm glad to hear something is being done. How effective it is, I hope you'll come back in a year or so to tell us that it's really a change.
Sir, I can tell you, we have one demo camera right now, one license plate reader and one camera. We actually were able to help Savannah find a murder suspect, and we were able to capture, I believe it's 3 or 4 stolen vehicles now.
Wow.
And a dementia patient from Sun City who left her house while her husband was taking a shower and drove away. He didn't know where she went.
Wow.
So I think it clearly shows they work. And
That wasn't
they're
me.
And let me say, I know that the town of Bluffton actually has this technology already, and there's sometimes they've caught people, and I've said, how in the world? And they've said, the license plate readers that come across. So again, it's being effectively used currently, and we have so many bridges, everything narrows down to those areas, so there's only so many places on, in and outside of Beaufort County. But
You've seen my
One way to
map,
get
so-
off of St. Helena, so.
all right, any other questions, David?
Actually, I have a few questions, sorry. One, let me first say, I know we all want to address the concerns and help law enforcement and make this community safer. My biggest concern, though, is in balancing the law enforcement aspect of this. How are y'all balancing the civil liberties? Because those cameras are picking up everybody's license plates. I know there's no expectation of privacy when you're out on the road, but how is this data being stored? How is it being accessed? Who has access to it? Just kind of the myriad. Is there any guiding legislation out there as to how this is being managed and handled from the state level?
Defer that to General Counsel.
Council members. So right now in the state of South Carolina, there is no legislation. There was a proposed bill last year that did not make it out of the House regarding legislation. SLED has a network of ALPRs that they're currently being sued over regarding a lack of legislation. Now, the difference between the SLED lawsuit and what we are planning to do is SLED was storing the information indefinitely, and this is throughout the statewide. We've contracted with RECOR and RICATA if we go through with it for a 30-day retention period. That is not going to be owned by the sheriff's office. It's actually going to be with a private company that alleviates any concerns for FOIAble issues with the sheriff's office. So the personal data that is contained within the ALPRs is not going to be a public document under FOIA. It's going to be with a third-party house. Who has access to it within the sheriff's office will be regulated in-house by the sheriff's office. It's not going to be every single road deputy or every single employee of the sheriff's office has access and account to log into RICATA or RECOR to access that information. It is going to be sensitive information. Of course, the sheriff's office is CJIS compliance. This information is CJIS compliance. For those of you who don't know what CJIS stands for, it's the Criminal Justice, and I wrote it down, Criminal Justice Information Services. So all of that information is stored and regulated per CJIS as well, and will be regulated as such through RECOR and RICATA. As far as any sort of legal challenges, of course, everything that you knowingly expose to the public, i.e. your license plate, there's no Fourth Amendment protections there. This ALPRs have been litigated throughout the country. This is not something that we are trying to create here in Beaufort County. We're just simply modeling everything that is being done throughout the country as far as ALPRs go. So it's been challenged as of recently. There was a Fourth Circuit case that came down in October 11th where it upheld the use of ALPR data in criminal matters. So from that perspective as well, we're not concerned.
And like I said, I'm more concerned about the civil liberty side of things with the mosaic theory, taking into account the mass collection and dragnetting of people's information about their goings and comings. The every day you can gather a lot. I know it's not quite as intense as a cell phone hooking up to a tower, but nonetheless, you can develop a lot of information that's picked up from those cameras in your day-to-day activity.
You're absolutely correct, but as far as the dragnetting, this is in no way comparison to a dragnet. These are centralized locations that are going to be placed in a strategic manner based off of statistics of where crime is going on. And it's going to be a point A, it's not going to be a point A through Z, it's going to be a point A, and then somewhere over here it's going to be another location. It's not going to be systematically set up where we can track you all the way through, because that's ineffective. It is going to be more so placed strategically based off of high crime areas. And again, to Councilmember Glover's point, Sheriff has been out to these communities where we've had these consistent shots fired, drive-by shootings, and we hear from the community, and they want to know why we don't have cameras. What do we need to do to make sure, who do we need to talk to make sure that we get these cameras? What funding do we need? Because quite honestly, that's a question that we get asked a lot is, well, why isn't there more surveillance? Why isn't there more cameras? Why can't we capture these? I walked in this building here this morning and saw surveillance on the cameras of this building when I walked by, the little dome securities. It's just the reality of today's world. And, there's certainly civil liberties and there's a balancing act, and I completely appreciate that from the legal perspective, but we're also law enforcement. We're entrusted with a significant amount of information that the normal general public is not entrusted with. And there has to be some appreciation for that.
And I do appreciate it. And I guess the other question with these particular technologies that are being brought forward, what are the error rates for these tag readers?
That I couldn't tell you, but I will say, as Captain Barry talked to you about, and you may know it, but as Captain Barry talked about, if we get an error rate for a tag reader, say we get a pop on a stolen vehicle, it's not going to be an automatic pull it out. A BOLO will be sent out to our deputies who will get behind the vehicle or run the tag to make sure that tag is actually, in fact, coming back to a stolen vehicle, and then a probable cause stop will take place. But this isn't going to be, oh, we've got a pop and now we automatically have probable cause, a standard pursuant to the Fourth Amendment that justifies a traffic stop. There'll still need to be further due diligence. what we envision these ALPRs to be used for is public safety, of course, right? So your stolen vehicles, your Amber Alerts of children stolen from different places, your missing persons with dementia who have left the facilities. We had the one Sun City lady, Hardyville had the person who went missing 3 or 4 months ago that was popping up on Flock's Hardyville cameras. Those ideas. And then, of course, the shots fired where we get a vehicle description, but that's it. If we have a camera out there that can pick up a ALPR and pick up a license plate, we can run that vehicle description of a gray Ford four-door truck that drove by this particular area in a couple-hour time frame and go back and look at those trucks, see if we have a license plate, who the vehicle is registered to, and continue our investigation, corroborate that information, and go from there.
And the reason I asked you about the error rates is in the limited research I've done, and I don't know what camera system it was, said it was upward of 37% on the ALPRs. And I don't know what camera system that was referencing.
I'm not quite sure either. As Captain Barrett explained, there are 3 or 4 different camera systems that we reviewed. We feel like Recor and Verkada fit our needs more for the citizens of Beaufort County. Their technology is significantly more advanced, in our opinion, than Flock. That's not to talk bad about Flock. Anybody's going with Flock.
It may be Flock that they're referencing it here, but I guess that leads me to my next point is both of these systems integrate AI, correct? How is that being regulated?
How is AI being regulated?
Like what system is that? Whose intellectual property is that AI?
That would be the company's intellectual property.
And are we going to be able to see the contracts that y'all are entering prior to entering them?
Y'all will be able to see the contract, certainly. As far as the locations of where we're going to be putting the ALPRs, probably not going to be able to see
But as far as the actual
sure, we can get you a
contracts.
copy of the contracts. That's not a problem.
And should we approve this and move it forward through the ARPA funds, because I know we got kind of got a deadline. But if we move forward with it, since there is no guiding legislation from the state, I think it'd be advisable to put together a citizens task force, committee, whatever you want to call it, and have the community set the standards for how that data is stored and how it's processed and the limitations, and have the community come in and manage that.
Well,
Or
again,
at least the expectations thereof.
well, again, you're talking, law enforcement has data that is sensitive specifically to law enforcement. So you're essentially implying some sort of malfeasance or misfeasance on behalf of law enforcement.
No. That's
with
not
the
what I'm
use of this
saying.
data.
I'm saying it impacts all of us. And this is advancing technology that we're implementing here. And we need to have a framework of guidance of how this technology is going to be used, because the slippery slope argument, because now you have the cameras up. What's going to stop us from 10 years from now, 15 years from now, from having facial recognition software on the cameras?
Well, that same argument could be made with any cameras in any.
Oh, I know, I understand that.
Anywhere
I'm saying
you
we
want.
have an opportunity now to address it. And so what I'm saying is, since there's no legislation for guidance at the state level, if we're going to be doing this, I think it's an opportunity to get the community involved, to put some frameworks in there and some boundaries.
Well, I believe the framework that we have, we're contracting with a private company. And so, to contract with a private company, it's trying to find a company that's flexible and modifying their terms with the contract. Again, we've agreed with Recor, if we go through with this contract, to maintain the data for 30 days. Looking at states across the country that have legislation dealing with ALPRs, the data is maintained between 120 days to 30 days. So we're already going on the front end of that 30 days. We're being advantageous on as far as how long should we store this data. Not only that, again, with the data itself, it's going to be regulated and restricted to only certain personnel who have access to it. So we have to be careful and sensitive as to what we're actually exposing to the community as far as regulations and information that we're providing. Are we giving the community too much information that they don't simply need to know about in this situation? Yeah. It's ALPRs, it's for public safety purposes only. That's it. There's no other, no other use for it, quite frankly, other than for public safety purposes.
Well, I in my limited research, I have read where they have been abused, where people have gone on their own personal vendetta, and I don't know this company.
Right.
Who internally has access to that database.
I guess the only thing I would say is, walking in here this morning or this afternoon with the surveillance videos, does county council know who has access to your surveillance videos? How long it's been recorded?
I think y'all.
Who all?
That's a great
Exactly.
question.
Yeah. Again, that's my point. Everything is ripe for abuse. Law enforcement, though, unlike anybody else, has access to sensitive information, right, on a daily basis. I have access to information that you don't have access to through CJIS. We already have those regulations in place. We have a statewide gang database. We have a DNA database. We have all sorts of databases that we have access to that the general public does not. Is anything potential for it to be abused? Certainly. But you're assuming that it will be abused. There's no, I can't tell you in good faith that there's not a potential for something to be abused. If it wants to be abused, if you have a bad actor, there's nothing that can be done that would prevent abuse, other than putting policies and procedures in place that we already have throughout the sheriff's office, that will continue to be throughout the sheriff's office to prevent any potential abuse.
And I think it comes down to trusting the sheriff's office. Look, Hilton Head, Beaufort City, Bluffton all have this. I'm quite sure you've talked to all of them.
Yes.
I was a little astounded when I read this that we don't have it, and they all do. I thought we were kind of the leader in law enforcement, so, okay, that was a rude awakening. But I'm quite sure they've all told you what they do, and if we find out there's an issue, it'll come back to us. But I trust that they're gonna do what they need to do. My son's in law enforcement, they have it. They didn't go to a community to ask, how do you like it, or what should we do? It's part of law enforcement. So,
And I can tell you, sir, that there is an audit trail within both these companies' software programs that I can look at any point and see who accessed anything.
Oh, yeah.
And I have it designed in such a way that in order for
Server security.
any of the limited number of people who will have access to search something, if they want to search something, they must connect it to an active investigation case number. So it's a way for me to go and monthly audit what everybody is looking at and literally make sure that only people are looking at things that they should be looking at.
Will your contract define exactly where these cameras and readers are gonna go?
No, sir.
Okay,
it's
good.
up to them. Do you have the law here, and I don't know, I only know from Ohio, that if an officer turns their lights on, their bubbles on, they have to have a reason. They don't get to just run your plate just because they don't like you. Is that the same
There has to be
here?
some type of reasonable suspicion.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can't use this just because you want to use it. That's
No,
the point.
with the way that this isn't gonna be a card rides through an APR and we check to see if it's a tag is expired. We don't have somebody sitting there monitoring these cameras 24/7 to see what's going on. We have it set up to be able to, we have 30-day window if we go through with this contract. If we have a shooting or a drive-by shooting, we've got 30 days, hopefully, to be able to identify a suspicious vehicle or a vehicle that was involved in the shooting, to go back through our ALPRs to see if we can find a vehicle that matches it, and hopefully gets caught on an ALPR. And then we conduct our investigation and corroborate that information. Or if somebody's driving in a stolen vehicle with a stolen license plate and it goes through an ALPR, it's gonna pop up. And I would assume that we all want those stolen vehicles caught. And this is not a situation where we're sitting there monitoring cameras, spying on individuals or citizens of Beaufort County. We don't have the time, nor do we have any sort of desire to do that. This is solely for a public safety purpose.
And look, I understand that, and that sounds like a good justification for the application of this technology. My concern is, like I said, the 5, 10, 15 years down the road, what is it gonna be used for?
Well,
What's it gonna expand to?
We don't know.
I can't predict the future. I wish I could. I'd be a very rich man.
Which is why we need to be talking about it now. And
Well,
I'm kind of
there's-
alarmed that nobody else.
There's gonna be legislation 5, 10, 15 years from now that is going to justify or enhance or detain or detract from what we're going to do.
And I think that leads me to my last point. That I believe the State House, I talked to members of our delegation today, I think they're actually taking this issue back up next year.
I hope so.
And as such, I don't think I can get behind allocating ARPA funds on this without the regulation from the state. And the fact they're picking it back up, I just can't get behind this.
Okay, with that, can I call the question, please?
Yes.
We have a whole agenda.
Let's see.
Before you call the question, I just want to make this comment on defense of the sheriff, and he doesn't need me defending him, but I would say this, that the sheriff right now has cameras all over the county, and there are times when there are traffic violation. Lawyers are asking for those cameras, those videos. The sheriff has said no to that. He does not want to get involved in that kind of litigation. So a lawyer's going to have to find out on their own what happened. So I trust the policy of the sheriff at this time, and if he's moving this forward, he's going to basically do the right thing and use it for that purpose and stuff, and that's really to deal with a lot of shooting and drive-bys and stuff, so, yeah.
And to that point, if I may, just because we're in a public setting and everything's being recorded, we don't record right now on our traffic cameras. So for any of the civil attorneys that want to get a lawsuit going, we don't record, so please don't send us any subpoenas or FOIA requests. The traffic management cameras do not record. The flat cameras, the ALPRs will record. They will store data for 30 days. They will be held by a private company that will be accessible only to BCSO employees that are designated by Captain Baird and to run audit trail. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right, well, there's no more discussion. Let's go ahead and call this, and obviously, David, you've mentioned being against it. Is there anyone else that objects? We need to do a roll call on this?
No.
Nope, no roll call, so this will be approved with one objection, and that's Mr. Bartholomew. We'll push this to County Council for approval, to be approved for funds. Again, so we've been here 2 hours. We probably have another hour to go with the 10 things that we've got remaining. Do we need to take a break? Is everyone good to go?
Yeah, let's move.
5-minute break?
Thanks for coming. No, let's keep going.
No, I'm good to go.
Keep going? All right, so Captain Baird, thank you for coming. We appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, you're the chairman. You need to take a break?
No.
Okay.
That's
If I do,
nice.
I just walk off. But
Waiting for this one to be, and again, I listen, as Finance Committee Chairman, I always try to let the discussions go as long as they need to go. I don't try to rush anything, so sometimes we're here a little longer, so I appreciate the patience from staff and everyone else that's here. So again, we will try to move through our other items. There might be one or two that has a longer discussion, but let's go ahead to number 11. Recommend approval to council of resolution amending the Beaufort County Personnel Handbooks, Policy Section 4.2, holidays and holiday pay as amended to add Juneteenth National Independence Day as a county observed holiday. Ms. Catherine Mead, who is our Beaufort County Human Resources Director, thank you for coming.
Motion and second first.
Hi, so I will be very.
So let me, we need a motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
I'll second it.
All right. And
I'll be very quick.
Yes.
Juneteenth, National Independence Day. It's recognized every year on June 19th. We are asking for us to amend our holiday schedule to include this in for our county employees to observe as a paid holiday. If the holiday was to fall on a Saturday, we would observe on Friday. If it is to fall on a Sunday, we would observe on Monday. And just a tidbit of note here, everyone in our county, the local municipalities are recognizing this holiday in addition to Jasper County and Charleston County. So I will open the floor for any questions you may have.
All right, any discussion? Any questions? All right, we will pass this without objection. Is there any objection?
No.
Seeing no objection, this will be moved to County Council. Thank you, Ms. Mead, for being here. Let's move on then to number 12. Recommend approval to council of resolution accepting the donations of a live oak tree at Whitehall Park from the Friends of Whitehall Park. And Ms. Naggett, please come forward. Thank you for being.
Motion and second.
Oh,
Will I do that? I'll motion it.
I'll second it. You just want to jump that gun. All
Go
right,
ahead.
now.
Super simple. There was a tree that fell in December of 2023 during the Christmas storms. It was a very large tree. The Friends of Whitehall Park had funding from donations that they want to replace it. They were, at the time that I submitted the AIS, they were anticipating replacing it on Arbor Day, which was December 6th. However, the contractor they hired to buy the tree from and install it had availability and timing last Friday. So the tree's actually already been installed, but the Friends did fully fund and pay for the installation of the tree. It does still fall under the City of Beaufort's maintenance policy or maintenance lease for the park. So the city, the Friends, county staff are all in agreement that this is a good thing, and we hope to celebrate its planting in the near future.
All right, any more discussion? All right, seeing no discussion, we will then approve this without objection, and seeing no objection, this has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Let's go on to number 13. Recommend approval to council of an ordinance to invest $4.3 million from the general fund in an infrastructure development project as Beaufort Executive Airport to fund construction of aircraft hangars. Mr. Rembold, we've got you here, but I need a motion first.
I'll make the motion.
And second by Mr. Bartholomew. All right, open this up for discussion and a presentation. Mr. Rembold, go ahead.
Thank you. It should only take 45 minutes to an hour, so. Or we just go vote.
Yes, let's go vote.
We
Be
can
quick,
vote.
right?
No,
No, just to refresh your memory, we were here before you about a month ago and got some good feedback from the committee, and we've since kind of retooled our narrative and our requests. So I'll go through some of the items that are included in the packet that you've got. First, to refresh your memory, out at Beaufort Executive Airport, we've got 34 T hangars there now. That's been the case for over the last, probably about the last 15 to 18 years. They've always been at 100% occupancy, and we've always had a waiting list. We've currently got a waiting list of 68 people, which equates to probably about a 22-year wait. So, yeah, we turn over about 3 hangars a year on average. So, it's a high demand for hangar space, and it's tough to get that. We also fill up the aircraft parking apron quite often, especially in the spring and the fall. They're real busy times of year. We just 2 weekends ago did the South Carolina Breakfast Club. We hosted the Breakfast Club, which is a fly-in social event on a Sunday morning. We had 38 airplanes fly in who are not based here, so we completely filled our paved apron, and we had, I think, 10 to 12 aircraft in the grass area. So we were into overflow grass parking. So additional hangars put some of our tenants who are currently tied down into the hangars and then frees up some of the apron space. But the revenue from that hangar project also will help us to expand the apron area for additional parking. The site work contract, so the work that will bring that project up to pad level but not slab level yet, has been approved, and we'll be awarding that soon. That's fully funded by a South Carolina Aeronautics Commission grant and ARPA funds that the airport had available. And so with that happening soon, we think that the best course of action is to follow through and complete the vertical component of this so that we do have additional hangars open for aircraft use. A few lesser-known facts about the airport that I just want to make sure that you understand. We do have a Civil Air Patrol squadron who's active out of Beaufort Executive Aircraft. They do base an aircraft there. They tie down. We do not charge them any fees to tie down. It's a good service to have out there. It serves during storm aftermath. They do damage assessment and things like that, but there's also a lot of other functions that they perform when there are not storms. We also house mosquito control. They've got a hangar on the airport. They do not pay a ground lease. It is on airport property, but they don't pay a ground lease there. So it's a public health function that the airport serves there free of charge. And we do have some great service by the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office out there. They've got a substation in our terminal in an area that would be otherwise a rentable, leasable space that we do not charge the Sheriff's Department for. We certainly love to have their presence out there. It's a fantastic deterrent to have their cars in the parking lot and have their personnel out at the airport. And then we also have the Beaufort County Sheriff's Aviation Department out there. You know, in the last several years, they started an aviation department, and Colonel Baxley flies the helicopter out there, and that's a prime piece of highway front property on Highway 21 that is available to them at no rent and no ground lease charge as well. So I just want to let you know about that. Those are foregone revenue opportunities for the airport as we talk about the hangars. We talked a little bit last time about the personal property tax revenues that come in from the aircraft that are based there. We talked with the auditor and got some good figures from the auditor's department. And currently, both airports together with the base aircraft generate just over $1 million in personal property taxes from aircraft. About 40% of that is attributable to Beaufort Executive Aircraft, or Beaufort Executive Airport. And so for the last 10 years, that equates to about almost $2.5 million worth of aircraft personal property tax revenues from Beaufort Executive Airport into the general fund. And none of that is reinvested into the airport currently. We hope to change that at a future meeting. We do get asked very frequently by tenants at the airport about that property tax because they ask us questions about maintenance projects at the airport and the prolonged schedule for some of those. And so our answer to them is that yes, they do pay personal property taxes, but no, the airport doesn't benefit from the personal property taxes. So they are tuned into this, and they are excited to see this project go, hopefully. So that's something that they're really looking forward to. We also kind of did a rough projection that as we build out this project and fill those hangars, we would increase the number of based aircraft by somewhere around 15 to 20%. That's going to equate to somewhere between $90,000 and $100,000 in additional personal property tax. And that's a little bit of a guess because we don't know what type of aircraft would go in there. It could vary widely depending on what goes in there. So it could vastly outpace our predictions. And so to kind of come full circle, we did get some good feedback last time at this meeting. We appreciated that. So like I said, we went back through and kind of retooled our proposal. We still presented you with 3 options. We didn't want to take the option of the full investment of the project off the table just in case you had a eureka moment in the last month. But we did take some of that advice and put together kind of a 50-50 split option, which you see in there. So that would split that $4.3 million right down the middle, and there would be the investment from the general fund of $2.15 million, and then there would be a long-term loan to the airport for the additional $2.15 million that would allow us to complete that project.
Go ahead.
So when I'm reading the backup documentation, it says the preferred option is 1, but I'm hearing that 2 is more advantageous. And so you're proposing option 2 rather than 1.
Based on the feedback, we propose option 2. Certainly, the airport would prefer option 1, but we realize in reality, option 2 is probably what we're looking at based on feedback from committee.
Okay, so I would like to amend this to say that the recommendation would be to adopt option 2.
All right, is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
All right, so we
Yeah,
have
what was the
a,
original motion?
It's the original motion, but it specifies that option 2 is the one that we want to include in the approval to county council.
Okay.
So I do have a question on that. I'm uncomfortable with the interest rate of 0.5%. That's nothing. And I'm not sure the public would think that's okay to loan that amount of money for 30 years at 0.5%. And I see the table on page 81, I get it, the return on investment, the debt service. I was looking more at a 2% interest.
Well, for your convenience, we did provide a table in the narrative that
That's what I'm
spells
looking
out
at.
several different interest rates. It's on the screen now. So that we want to break that down just so that you could see if you wanted to choose a different interest rate there, it would show you what that debt service would be and then, what the revenue would be to the airport.
We can modify this, because this goes to council for first reading of the ordinance.
Correct.
And then we could ask questions to ask you to do certain other things before we adopt that. But the idea is to do option 2, which is a half this, half that.
Correct.
And what happens to the unstructured loan?
That
Just
700.
throwing that
That's-
out
The
on
loan's
the
still
table.
on our books.
It's still on the books.
It's still on the books,
Are
so
we ever gonna structure it?
we can bring that back to you all. But we took that out of this because it was a bit
too
confusing.
complicated.
I mean, now that we
Yes.
found it out there, we need to take care
Yes,
of
and
it.
that's one of the first things the new CFO mentioned to me is
Okay.
we might want to look at that again. So we will look at that again.
Okay.
So we need to vote on the amendment to see if that's gonna pass to do option 2, and then vote on,
Where do you want to change it? 'Cause mine says option.
All right,
I know it says option 2 there, but the backup documentation says the preferred option is 1.
That's what they would prefer,
I
yeah.
don't think you need a motion to amend anything. You just need to make a motion as to which option you recommend to council for approval, is all you have to do. So which option you want, and then within that option, are you happy with the term of years being 30 years? Are you happy with the interest rate being 0.5% of an interest rate over those 30 years? And are you happy with $2.15 million be the loan over 30 years. Those three things are the main things. As you'll see in the backup there in the project item narrative, option 2 is the recommended one, but that's just backup. And now whatever your motion is what you're recommending.
That's right. And that's why I said I had to amend, because the motion was just what was read. It didn't say option 2.
The motion
Let's-
says you put it all from the general fund,
Well, let's go ahead
Well,
with,
for this, in investment, that doesn't tell you how
how you invest it.
2.15 is from the general fund, and 2.15 is from a loan, unless you change those numbers. But the investment that they're asking for is $4.3 million. So unless you change that 4.3, you don't need an amendment. You just need to say what you want in your recommendation to council as far as the loan and the grant, the amount, the interest rate, and the term of years.
Got it.
I think you've said option 2,
Yeah.
which is the 0.5%, but it's the hybrid of the two. That's what we currently have.
That's correct.
Who was the second?
I did.
Mr. Glover. So then the question is, interest rate, term of the loan, that's what we're talking, okay.
Right, and they're recommending 30 years at 0.5%, 2.15 million in the form of a loan, and then just a straight out grant of 2.15.
Correct.
All right, so any more discussion? And we have a,
Right.
an amendment on the table.
Right, and so what he's saying is the basis of that, it is a option 2 for 30 years with a 0.5%. Ms. Tabernick said she doesn't like that, but we can make a change because we're gonna send it to council for first reading of the ordinance. Whatever we're doing tonight is not the end of it. And so it may be a suggestion that you be prepared for other interest rates.
To give everybody a chance to think about it and look at the chart on page, whatever that is.
So the question then is, do we want to go ahead and have an amendment to the amendment, or just go ahead with it at the 0.5% option 2, and we push it to council?
Brian's gonna tell you there's no amendment.
Right.
He's getting ready to pop up.
I'm saying I'm right.
I
in
think
that.
you are right. So again, right now, we have, if there's no more discussion, the motion is that we would recommend option 2 to go to council. All right? Is there any objections to that?
No.
All right, so we were going to move this to council
Mhm.
And we'll discuss it.
as it's amended, and now we have to vote on the original amendment
As amended.
as amended.
Yes.
Brian, you okay with that? You got the look on your face like,
Nope.
We'll get to the same result.
Yes.
all right.
We're gonna get
All
the
right, so
same results.
we have the amended motion, which is to push this to council as option 2, as it's written. Is there any objection to that? Seeing no objection, then this will go to council for reading. So thank you, John, for coming. We appreciate you being here.
Thank
And
you.
we'll all be prepared to discuss the terms.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, let's move on then. And that one was easier than I thought it was going to be, so make some time up. So number 14, recommend approval to council of resolution authorizing the county administrator to accept operational grant award from the Coastal Community Foundation's Beaufort Fund Grant Program. And we have Mr. Ben Boswell coming up he's Director of Human Services. Ben, thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here. And we're going to go ahead and have a motion. Is there a motion for this?
I'll make a motion,
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, seconded, and we'll open up for discussion. Let's have a presentation. Mr. Boswell, go ahead, the floor is yours.
Absolutely, I don't have a whole lot to say, just that we submitted this in the spring. This is a general operations grant from the Coastal Community Foundation. From the Beaufort Fund, we've applied historically, certainly for the past 11 years I've been here, I think longer than that for this particular fund. The grant application itself is provided in the backup, primarily just for activities as it relates to supporting Beaufort County families.
Good. Any more discussion, any questions?
I was just wondering why we only got 15,000. I know you don't make that decision, but it was kind of weird. We asked for 25 and we got 15.
That's standard process for pretty much all grant processes across the board. You always shoot for the moon, and then you just get what you get.
I think we're worth more than 15, but okay.
All right, any
I'll
more
write better
discussion?
next time.
All right, seeing no discussion, we'll approve this without objection. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, this has been approved. Mr. Boswell, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You waited all that time for 2 minutes.
That's right. Let's move on then to number 15. Recommend approval to council for Beaufort County to enter into a special source revenue credit agreement with Project Micro. The fiscal impact company will be offered equivalent to base FELO 6% over a 20-year period. We have Mr. John O'Toole, the Executive Director of the Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation. Mr. O'Toole, thank you for coming, and introduce your counterpart.
This is Will Johnson. He is our attorney and most knowledgeable on SSRCs and FELOs. And then Kelly Brunson's with us as well. So yeah, I'll give a little advance.
Motion and second.
I'll motion that. I'll motion.
Just put a big sign up.
Ms. Brown and Mr. Glover is the second. All right, open for discussion. Mr. O'Toole, go ahead.
I saw your council rise. I felt like it was in the British Parliament. But it's great to be with you. As you know, and I've given a little overview. Probably about 5 years ago, Will came down and gave the council a primer on it. So I would imagine David and Paula didn't hear that as well as Tab. So if you want to do a deep dive, I'll give you the economic development professionals overview of why we do it. So in 1895, the Constitution was written. Do I have the right year?
Sure.
Okay. I may turn it over to council sooner than I expected. But basically, in our Constitution, there are weighty tax rates that really would have kept economic development out of South Carolina. So when you see the BMWs and the Boeings and the behemoth projects that have come to South Carolina, the only way South Carolina could compete was for those host communities to use FELOs, which is a fee in lieu of taxes, and SSRCs, which is special source revenue credits, to work around it. More recently, the legislature changed some of the tax laws so that you don't have to use the FELO as much. So there are some rebates in place at the state level. The SSRCs are often used on an existing structure. On a new structure, you might use FELOs. What we've tried to do is make Beaufort as welcoming as any county in the state of South Carolina, and we try to treat each project equally. And so with that, let me tell you a little bit about Project Micro. The project is already here, and so you have like a year and they're in the midst of building out the facility. They have basically a 15,000 square foot facility where they expect to expand by another 15,000 square feet. They're bringing 42 jobs. The name of the company is TL & Co. They're a distributor to defense and aerospace, so it's like right in one of our prime sectors. 42 jobs, average comp $125,000. They are going to invest $7.1 million into the facility, and our economic analysis says that it'll result after 3 years in 75 direct and indirect jobs in our community. It'll produce income of $17.6 million for the people across those 75 jobs. And there'll be an additional $5 million in business spend. So it's a great project, and it's in a sector where we should be doing more. And, you know, at the end of our meetings with Tim DiDonato, he said, "This is great. What can I do for you?" It was a lunch with Gerald Dawson, whose district it's in. And we said, "We want you to bring us 5 more leads." So that's how we generate business, is by treating people well and then asking them to help us bring their suppliers. So we hope this is the beginning of more good things to come. And now Will can correct all the facts I may have gotten wrong, but anything you want to add?
Thanks, John, and thank you all for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to serve Beaufort County. I know we're late, so I'll make it really quick, but I grew up in Lake City. I'm in Columbia now. spent a lot of time in your county as a child at Vandermeer Tennis Center before I realized I didn't have a future there, hence lawyer and here today in another capacity. You have a special source revenue credit instead of a fee in lieu of tax agreement here. And for those of you who've been on council for a while, you've probably seen fee in lieu of tax agreements. They're a little bit more straightforward. The reason that we have a special source revenue credit agreement here with a 12% SSRC for 20 years is because this project involves an existing building. There's a nuance in the South Carolina fee in lieu of tax law that says counties can't use traditional fee in lieu of tax agreements where an existing building is involved unless a project is $45 million or more. Most counties across the state are very happy to support companies coming into existing buildings, fixing them up, but it requires us to use a slightly different tool. So what we did here, the reason that you see a 12% SSRC for 20 years is we ran the numbers down to the penny to try to get this as close as it possibly could be to what a basic traditional fee in lieu of tax agreement with no SSRCs would do. So that's the background on how we got to that number. I'm happy to go into more detail, but mindful of your time, so I'll be happy to answer any questions that you like.
Any questions? Seeing no questions, we will call, or any discussion, we'll call the call to question. And is there any objection?
No.
Seeing no objection, then we move this to council.
You need an energy drink.
I was hoping for an amendment.
We're good.
You worked hard today. 16.
All right, thank you. Thank you for coming, Mr. O'Toole. And let's go on then to number 16, recommend approval to council to place and purchase by Project Micro into an existing multi-county industrial park, Project Micro. And this would allocation of revenue would be 99% to Beaufort County and 1% to Jasper County, and the Beaufort County portion of the park, and 99% to Jasper County, 1% to Beaufort County and the Jasper County portion of the park. This project would fall within the Beaufort County portion of the park. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
All right, thank you. Ms. Howard, and a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Open up to discussion and presentation.
Yes, sir. I forgot about that part. So in order to provide special source revenue credits, it's really a legal formality, but you have to designate the property as a multi-county park. So this second step, I would say, is a very mundane, just follows logically from offering the SSRC agreement.
Any additional questions? Seeing no questions, we will call the question to order. Is there any objection? We'll pass this without objection. Seeing no objection, this is also passed. Again, thank you for coming. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. O'Toole. All right, let's move on then to number 17. Recommend approval to council to award a contract for broadband expansion to serve underserved areas of Beaufort County to Connect Holding, LLC, AKA Brightspeed, for RFP 111824, and in the amount of $367,069 to be funded with ARPA funds. And
I'll make the motion.
All right, thank you, Ms. Tabernick. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, and for discussion, Mr. Hank, if you could please come forward and give a real quick overview of what this is.
All right, you have a couple things attached to your document packet, which is the bid tabulations. We've spoken a couple times during my ARPA reports about putting out this RFP for the underserved areas of Beaufort County. You also have a map of the winning proposal of where the areas they're going to serve. So it covers actually out on St. Helena. It covers some of northern end of Ladies Island and all the way up into Lebico, up to the farthest reached underserved area of a peninsula the northeast part of the county. We originally had 4 proposers. And after the first round, it was reduced to 2. 2 of them are heavy wireless, where we wanted to have fiber to these areas. And then after review of and interviewing of the final 2 teams, it was clear to all 3 by our scores that we submitted that the Brightspeed proposal was the winner. And just so you know, they quoted a number of served, underserved, now served houses as a part of this. That is I'm colorblind, but they're either yellow or green dots at the end of the line. The point is they aimed to the end of the line because every house on the way gets served. So while that number says in the high 1s, maybe low 2s, there's actually more than 2,000 homes that are going to have a line running by this. And so we're excited about this proposal. We competed it, we put it out this time, we heard you last time on our last time we awarded, and we feel like we got the best product for the underserved areas of the county.
Do we have Brightspeed in other areas of the county? I never heard of that one.
It's
Brightspeed is Hargray.
No,
No. that's
Sparklight is Hargray. Yeah. Yeah, Brightspeed is a company that's an amalgamation of several older companies, which I think it incorporates CenturyLink and Spectrum and different companies that have gone together.
Yeah.
That's, don't quote me, but that is it's a new company. That was part of their presentation, is how much the culture and growth and service offering. And some houses on these lines will have more than one option at this point, which then breeds competition, which breeds better prices for access.
Okay.
All right, any more discussion, any more questions?
Just quickly, Hank, when I look at St. Helena, this is the northern part of St. Helena, isn't it?
There is some northern, and on the map, yes, but I'm glad you asked, because there's actually 3 projects that have happened.
Thank you.
There was one project that we funded earlier this year in May for Hargray, which is now Sparklight. They are doing, if you look at where this map ends, they've continued down farther south.
Just a little further.
A little farther south and west. Additionally, Comcast was awarded a state grant, which is what limited our map, that they're going to serve several hundred more homes on St. Helena, and we can send that map out to you, which then allowed us to focus our funds on the remaining underserved areas. So there's 3 projects, 2 of them we funded, one with Hargray/Sparklight, one with Brightspeed to do these areas, and then the biggest one is actually the Comcast state-funded project that is getting ready to kick off.
When could I see that map?
As soon as I get back to my computer, if she did send it to us. We requested a map because they wanted to talk to us about rights of way and pole usage, but it truly was a DOT, a Dominion issue, not really a county issue.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad to hear that. And if we approve this here, how soon could they get started? Because I got people wanting.
Well, I'll look at the timeline that they put in it, but they're going to immediately begin planning and permitting processes in the coming year.
Good, any more questions for?
I had one more. On page 178, it says all residential and commercial services within the territory are able to request and receive service installed perpetually at no cost for the fiber?
It's not telling me.
It's like, what?
No cost for the physical fiber.
Yeah, households that initially declined service at rollout can still.
Well, the good part is, in their interview process, we made sure that no promotional, there won't be a drop dead date.
To sign up.
Just like with any provider, they said it may change, but it won't change specific to these locations, right? So I have a different provider. And every year, I might get a new promotion. And if you buy new service, you might get a better promotion this time, but everybody floats together. They said it will be a standard product, system-wide, not to hold the people hostage. But it will go to council for final approval, and I can make sure to ask that question for you.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's just cool. Hank, you've been dealing with all of these providers. Are they basically equitable at this time as far as, I don't know the word, bandwidth?
Yeah, so good question. So what we've done is, in our RFP, we required that they have a minimum speed up and speed down offered.
Okay.
And that limited some of the service, and we also that's why we wanted the hard fiber for reliability, et cetera. And that's really the only, that's how you get those faster up and down speeds.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for putting this out to bid and doing it competitively. So I appreciate that.
All right, any more discussion, any more questions? Seeing none, without objection, we will pass this on to council. Is there any objection? Do not see any objection, so this will be moved to council. All right, thank you, Hank. All right, let's move on then to number 18. Recommend approval to council of a resolution to extend the broadband everywhere category 3 grant program end date and allow us to expand the remaining $170,000 of area upfunds in order to serve new customers each by ongoing and upcoming broadband expansion programs. And Mr. Munson, you coming back again? Can I have someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr.
right.
Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Glover.
One word I want to correct there. where was that, Brian? He said,
It should be expend.
expend, not expand. Expend the remaining 170,000, and I'll explain that
That
here.
was to expend the remaining $170,000.
I'd love to expand it, but we're going to have to expend it.
It says expand.
Okay. It says expend.
Maybe it got corrected. I've got it here as expanded. We want to make sure it's right for y'all. So,
It's right in here.
this is a program that you approved last year. However, in looking back to make sure we documented and obligated all of our funds properly, I found the resolution set an end date of 2024, which is next month, December. This is actually good to extend the timeline to match and give time for those that were running new high-speed internet past their property. Some people may have it now, but don't want to and are unable to pay to run it down a quarter-mile driveway. So we spoke to during the RFP process and throughout this last year and talking to the internet companies to say, bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you.
How far, everybody here who might live in a more urban setting, the company usually covers up to a couple hundred feet. There's usually a standard, they'll cover to here, included in your install fee. If then you have to start paying more to get it down a long driveway. So this is called the long driveway program that you passed. This is just to extend the deadline so that when we do get these lines in front of houses, we can help get it to the houses through an application process that actually goes to the provider. So we don't just hand money out that we don't know where it's going. The provider would then get an application from the person, pass it to us, and we verify and pay for that.
What's the definition of a long driveway?
Anything outside of the
Normal.
whatever they cover. And so we talked to a few companies just to get ballpark numbers. Initially, when it came to you, there were very high estimates of what it could cost. It's lower, so we feel like we can really serve a significant amount of people with this number.
Any more questions?
No, this is really necessary for rural areas because, it could be cost prohibitive trying to get to my house from their lines and stuff. So this is really good.
All right, we're going to move this forward without objection. If there's no objections, we move to council. I see no objections, so this has been approved. All right, let's move on now to number 19, and this is a resolution to establish the Beaufort County Local Accommodations Tax and Local Hospitality Tax fiscal year 25 list of county properties, and the fiscal impact, none. All projects must be properly procured and come back to committee and council as appropriate prior to funds being committed. Dollar amounts listed in the schedule are estimates which must be fully vested via the planning and procurement process.
I'll make the motion.
Make the motion? All right, is there a second, please?
I'll make the second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bartholomew. Is there any discussion? Can we move this to council as is, or would you like to hear Mr. Robinson and
I think we talked about this for the longest, huh?
Yes, we did.
all right. Is any more discussion? Seeing no discussion, we will then approve this without objection. Is there any objection to moving this to council? And I see no objection, so this will be approved without objection. All right. And then let's move on then to number 20. Recommend approval of council to authorize the county administrator to accept a federal sub-award grant from the South Carolina Department of Public Health for $23,229.60. This says no fiscal impact, no matching funds are required. And is there a motion for this, please?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Is there any more discussion? Well, we can approve this without objection. I see no objection, so this also will be approved and moved to county council. And that now brings us to number 21 on our agenda, discussion of the appointment of Patrick Mitchell or Mark Presnell to the Stormwater Management Utility Board for a 4-year term with the expiration date of November 2028.
Mr. Chairman,
You go ahead.
I'd like to nominate Patrick Mitchell.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion for that?
Yes. So I just want to kind of get clarification. I know the chair came in and advocated for Mr. Mitchell. And I believe I gave a brief background of what happened before. So Mr. Mitchell missed turning in his his reappointment paperwork in a timely fashion. The county and myself had communicated with Mr. Presnell. He actually was impacted by Debbie. He had significant stormwater flooding on his property. And from there, we were able to identify that there's a cascading failure in a lot of places on Ladies Island for stormwater that have not been addressed. So since both parties have been in communication with the county about being reappointed, but also the new appointment, I thought it'd be fair for us to discuss both of them and have them both be heard. I think we're going to win either way. Patrick would be reappointed as, with experience, whereas Mr. Presnell does have an engineering background. I think he understands stormwater, and I think getting a new perspective would be beneficial as well. So I think either way, the district wins. I think the county wins. But I thought in the interest of fairness, it'd be best for everybody to discuss openly. And at this point, I would nominate Mr. Presnell for a new appointment for this.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for Mr. Mitchell, so we'd have to vote on that. And if that,
I have a question.
and if that fails, then that's whenever we would then come back
Fair
for
enough.
another amendment to appoint Mr. Presnell. And Ms. Brown, go ahead if you have any
So
discussion.
who was Mark Feinberg recommending?
That was the chairman. That
I
was the
know
chairman.
who he is, yeah.
He was
I'm just-
he was recommending Patrick Mitchell,
Mitchell.
who he served with.
Oh, okay,
Because
he
I
was
believe
recommending.
2012 was when Patrick
Okay,
was on there.
so, but you're recommending Mr. President?
Yeah, Mr. Presnell, just because his home and his property was physically impacted to stormwater, and I think with him having an engineering background and physically being impacted by stormwater failures, I think he'd bring a unique perspective to the stormwater
Okay.
board.
So you as the councilman want Mark, not Patrick, is that what you're saying?
I'd
Okay.
prefer to
Although
get,
Mark Feinberg would like Patrick, not Mark.
Correct.
Right, okay.
and like I said, either way, I think the county wins.
Okay.
But in the interest of fairness, I wanted everybody to be heard and discussed.
Okay.
Question, the number of votes needed, that's when it goes to full council.
Right.
Correct.
We're making a recommendation.
Okay, and I had another comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Patrick Mitchell has lived on Lays Island all his life, and his family has, but he's also in the construction business, and I'm the liaison to stormwater, and he fully participates in everything, and he knows a lot of, he's not an engineer, but he's in construction. So his company's Mitchell Brothers, and they're second generation, so
And like I said, I
he has
think
a lot of experience. I think, either one, but I think there is an opportunity for Mr. Presnell to be on another board and commission too.
And I
as
applaud
mentioned.
anybody stepping up willing to serve, and this is not a
Yeah, I agree
contentious
with
thing.
that.
Yeah.
Just in the interest of fairness, wanted to be heard, and I think the county wins either way, so.
All right, is any more discussion? There's seeing no discussion. Sarah, I think we need to have a vote for this. If you could please call the roll, please. And again, what happens is if Mr. Mitchell, who's up right now, gets the majority votes, then he'd be recommended to council. But again, council will have the final vote. If for some reason Mr. Mitchell does not get that, well, then we'd have to open up the floor again to make another nomination.
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Councilmember Glover?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes?
Councilmember Bartholomew?
No.
Chairman Passmont?
Yes.
Committee Vice Chair Tavernick?
No.
Committee Chair Lawson?
Mark Lawson, yes.
The motion passes.
All right, so that will be moved to council for approval.
This one?
And then, let me jump back here. We got a
That's your mark?
couple other, number 22, boards and commissions, appointments and reappointments. And we'll take all these at one time. Is there any objection to us handling these all at once? Is there any reason someone wants to separate these out?
No.
Only see two, John Tedder
There's only
and
two.
Denise.
Yeah.
Ricard.
Right.
So,
Just,
Sydney.
I just lost my,
It's John and Denise.
all right, so, all right, so we have appointments, a recommendation of approval for Design Review Board, and that would be the appointment of John Teeter to the Design Review Board for a 4-year term with the expiration date of November 28th for District 4. And then also I recommend approval for the appointment of Denise Persida to the Design Review Board Review Board for a 4-year term with the expiration date of November 2028. So I need a motion to accept those.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
All right, any more discussion?
I just have a comment. I noticed both of these are brand new, serving a first term. And that kind of influenced me on the last vote we did, because we have to keep engaging our residents. Instead of keeping people on 4 terms, 5 terms, 6 terms, here we have 2 new people, which is great. We have 2 new volunteers.
All right, any more discussion? We will approve them without objection, move to council. Seeing no objection, they are approved. Is there anything else that would need to,
Can I just clarify something on the last vote, not this one, but the one previous? Both names go to council if you find that they're qualified. And the reason that's important is, as Alice was alluding to, because it's a repeat term, you'll have to have a certain number of votes. I think it's
10 of 11.
votes
10 of 11.
for that to pass. So if he didn't get the required number of votes, then you would consider the other qualified applicant to see if he got the qualified number of votes. So I just want to clarify that both names will go up there if you find they're qualified. So it's both determined that they're both qualified to go to council, so that we don't have to bring it back.
all right, so it's never been explained to us like that before, so what do we need to change
Yeah, I
on?
mean, that's interesting
It's
because
happened.
we just voted,
Yeah.
we just voted to recommend one person.
Yeah.
But if the council doesn't get the required number of votes,
It goes
required
back.
number of
It
votes.
it stops right there.
Right, but then you don't have the member, you have to come back.
Yeah.
If you find that they're both qualified, you can both go up there, and the first one that you're recommending approval on doesn't get the 10 of 11 votes that are
Right.
required, you've got another name to consider if you believe that he's qualified and should be forwarded.
So if
So what do we need to do?
So
That was not
I
the
don't think we
motion,
need to do anything. If both names will go up with the recommendation of Patrick Mitchell by finance committee vote, right?
I would feel better if someone made a motion that they were both
Yeah.
qualified, and both names could go forward, because there are technical qualifications there. And then they're both up there for consideration of the commission.
And then we can, the vote here can be reflected as far as,
You recommend approval for Mr. Mitchell.
Right.
But the other name is qualified, he's just not the one that this committee is recommending.
okay.
All right, so we can do a motion or amendment to our,
Just a motion to find that Mr. Brunel is also qualified, and that he would be a qualified candidate.
All right. So I guess I'll make the motion to amend, what item number is that? I apologize.
it was,
I don't think you need to amend that motion. I think that motion should stand on its
Just
own.
a new motion?
If you wanna forward another name, it's a different story.
You made a motion recommending approval of Mr. Mitchell.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that the committee finds that Mr. Prusnell is qualified as well, in case Mr. Mitchell doesn't get the required number of votes at the council, all in one.
Then we can go ahead and vote
I
at
would
the,
just make a motion, ask for a second, have that vote, and then you get it up
I have a question. So if Mr. Mitchell doesn't get 10 of 11 at council, then the second guy goes up, what if he needs 6 of 11?
there. He needs a majority, he's got to get a majority. If he doesn't get a majority, then we have votes for another applicant.
But there isn't any other
Well,
applicant.
then you just keep your search going.
Understood. So the question is, Mr. Mitchell was to be sent to council by this committee.
Right.
Recommend approval.
Okay. Why would we not vote on him? If he doesn't get the required number of votes, then we're gonna start the
Start the
process
process all
over
over.
again. And it doesn't matter if we do it at that meeting or send it back.
I agree with that.
If you look at your rules of procedure under appointed to agencies, boards, commissions, and authorities.
Right.
Paragraph 2, nominations, it says the appropriate committee shall review the applications on file and select nominees to be submitted to full council. Interviews may be scheduled at the request of the chairman or committee chairman. In situations where technical or other special qualifications are required within the charter for appointment, the committee will review and analyze the technical qualifications of the applicant and will recommend and forward to council only those names of qualified candidates. That's what our rule of procedure says. So, I'm just trying to get it to where if Mr. Mitchell doesn't get the 10 out of 11 votes that's required, because you have 2 negative here, that once it's up there, then you'll have another name as an option to consider to see if he gets a majority vote.
Without having to go back to the committee level.
Your name's there, you've already got the application, you consider it, this committee is recommending Mr. Mitchell, that may or may not carry the day at the full council. Full council is the one that gets to decide. You're just recommending approval of a certain candidate of the two.
Correct.
So I guess I'd be making a motion
To
to,
find that Mr. Bushnell is also a qualified candidate.
that one, that motion right there.
All
Yeah.
right, is there a second?
I'll second.
And then is there a vote to find, does everybody?
Is everyone okay with him being considered a
Put that one
qualified
right
candidate
there.
as well?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not. I mean, I think we had a motion to bring forward a name. We did that.
Yeah.
And it should, and if we decided if he doesn't get 11 votes or 10 votes, it goes back to the process. I understand what you're saying, and I think you want to be expedient, but I think that's me. So I don't agree with sending another name up at this time. If we set up another name, we may as well not even come to the committee, just go to the whole entire board. We got 2 qualified people, which one do you want? And we won't have the discussion in committees.
But I think he's reading our procedure. I mean,
Right.
it's not an
Remember, the
opinion.
purpose of the committee is to consider the applicant and then make a recommendation to council.
We did.
Council decides who to
Yeah.
appoint. You did, but
We did.
then you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 5 out of 7 before that. That's not even a majority of council. What if the other members of council don't agree and they want the new blood, like Mr. Bartholomew and Ms. Kaepernick put forth?
Then we're gonna find out.
Correct, but if the name is already there as a qualified applicant, then it can all occur right there at that vote.
He's saying otherwise they have to open it
Yeah,
back
well-
up again.
And the backup material would just show this
Call the roll.
this body's vote for Mr. Mitchell.
They're both up there, but the committee recommends Mr. Mitchell is what it would be. So they would make a motion to approve Mr. Mitchell. And if it carries the day, great. If not, you get the other applicant. Does he have enough votes or not? If not, we go back.
All right, let's do a roll call vote. Sarah, please.
What are we voting on?
Yeah.
We are voting on
Qualified
whether we add
applicant.
Mr.
Presnell is going to be listed as a
Presnell
qualified
Presnell.
applicant.
listed as a qualified applicant
Okay.
on
At
the
the
county
council
council
meeting.
With,
agenda.
with Patrick Mitchell being the recommendation
Right.
from the finance committee.
Correct. All right, we need to call.
Councilmember Bartholomew.
Motion
Yes.
Committee Vice Chair Tabernack.
I'm trying to wrap my head around. So we're setting both names up.
that. Yes.
We've made a recommendation that it's Mr. Mitchell,
Yeah.
but this would also send the second name up as he is qualified.
Yes, yes.
Councilmember Howard.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Glover.
No.
Chairman Passament.
No.
Committee Chair Lawson.
Mark Lawson, yes.
The motion passes.
You forgot Bartholomew.
He was first.
He was first.
Okay. Sorry. It's late.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else to come before this committee?
We hope not.
Seeing none, thank you for everyone for being here. We are adjourned at 5:53.
Meet you there.